And we are live. This is Dark Journalist. Fantastic to have everyone here tonight. Welcome to Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, which is what we're reporting on tonight. It's sort of a pre-Halloween special on the Corey Goode Blue Chicken Gang with some extraordinary moves that have been happening there. And tonight we're going to have a very special overview on this because the moves that have been committed by this group that I've been tracking very closely, and we've been dedicated to tracking, as we've promised on this show, this group that moves very much like a cult. I call it a marketing cult, but they certainly have had their hands in a number of different pies right now, and it looks like we just caught their hand in the cookie jar. So we're going to sort of round up exactly what's been going on, and then we're going to get into some rich detail because in working so long on this issue around these cults coming in and absconding with the secret space program research and the amount of plagiarism that goes on in relation to the field, I've accumulated a lot of information. Now, a lot of that information is in something called New Age Deep State, which is a series I produced of 5 episodes that are available online. Just punch it right into YouTube. It's there. It's free. And it gives an overview. And I hate to say I told you so, but this is the nature of the beast because the Tom DeLonge gang is in there. The Corey Goode gang is in there. And guess what? The marketing CIA forces are crunching everybody in the middle. And if they aren't stopped here, then it's going to be a problem. So we're going to stop them here with your help, of course. And before we get into any of that, I want to thank everyone for so much support around the X series, which is something that I've been doing with the lovely Olivia, who joins us tonight.
Hi, everybody.
And, we got to episode 30, and we decided we're going to do another 10 episodes on the X series, going deep into the mystery schools and the deep state. So we're going to start that up again the week of Halloween. So this is going to be something that, when we go into those deep areas, it's amazing how much we find out that the mystery schools are deeply entwined with the political, geopolitical realities that we find ourselves in now. And that's just been a passion of mine this year, bringing that information forward. And with all your help, we're going to continue to do that, of course. Now, on to tonight. And I guess I should ask Olivia how we're doing in Chatland, because it is huge.
Crazy. It is going so fast.
I have to acknowledge we have some fantastic people out there. Joseph Farrell is in the house. And Joseph, I want to say we can't wait to hear the incredible music that you're recording right now. So as soon as you're done with that, of course, we're going to get you back on the show, hopefully sooner. But everyone's excited about this. And also, who else have we got?
We got Joe from the Carolinas.
Joe from the Carolinas, amazing. Joe, I've been following Joe's reports. Wow, is this a rising star? This guy, he's been putting out reports relating to the secret space program, to Tom DeLonge's group, trying to inject just a little bit of sanity around it. And trust me, I know the feeling. So I'm in there with you, Joe. And I always enjoy your reports. They're witty and they get right to the point. So I highly recommend everyone check out his work. And I know I saw Groovy Bean in the house, and it's always fantastic to have Groovy Bean. She's had a long layoff, and she knows the topic very, very well. And she's dealt with a lot of the people and a lot of the scenarios that we're talking about tonight up close and personal. So her presence out there is fantastic. So let's take a look at how this all got started here, because, of course, the series that I did was from 2017, and the last episode of that, now, if I'm thinking it's the summer of 2017, it's about July. I think the end of July would be that one. And it involved Annette O'Toole, who may be in the house tonight, but she was running a very interesting blog, and she was really dived into a lot of very, very interesting topics. And she was running a conference, and that episode covers a lot of what happened with her working with these people that we're going to talk about tonight, Corey Goode and his business manager, Roger Richards, is what he's calling himself now, actually, a.k.a. Roger Ramser, a.k.a. Emma Gold. This is someone who showed up out of the blue on the scene with something called Full Disclosure Now. In 2016, this guy showed up. That's pretty recent. That's just like, less than, it's basically a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And this is somebody who strikes me as very, very unusual. And, in journalism, one of the things you learn immediately is you always look at the business manager. That's where you go. If you want the straight dope, you never go with the guy who's in the front. You always go back there. Who's that business manager? Who's arranging stuff? Who's funding stuff? Let's take a look at him. So in the New Age Deep State we did, and it was pretty interesting. I mean, it's kind of like there's a whole manipulative trail around this, and I want to get deep, deep into that tonight. And everything's going to be on the table tonight because one of the things that's happened really is this group in pushing forward, the Sphere Being Alliance claims of Corey Goode to the Secret Space Program through trademark, legally enforceable trademark. It's an egregious assault on free speech. It's an egregious assault on intellectual property rights, and it will not stand. And these reports are going to continue until that situation is alleviated legally, physically, intellectually, and all the rest. So there's not going to be anything standing between us and the ability to research and do our conferences and everything else related to it. So don't think for a minute that this is something that we're kind of reporting on in a removed fashion. We're deeply, deeply committed because it's like somebody just came into our backyard and set up shop. And, that's just not going to fly because we've been doing the Secret Space Program for a long time, a lot longer than Mr. Goode crawling out of Gaia TV. So let's be real about that to start with. Tonight, by the way, we're going to have Walter Bosley, author Walter Bosley, go deep, deep into the subject with us. And, Walter was at the Secret Space Program conference with me and Joseph Farrell. That conference in particular, I think, which is available online, the Secret Space Program Conference 2015, where we had Linda Moulton Howe, Richard, no, we didn't have Richard for that one. He was in 2014, and we had Jim Marrs, the late Jim Marrs, the late, great Jim Marrs, and we did it in Texas. So the whole thing just had this fantastic feel, and Joseph was there giving an extraordinary overview of his latest work around Giza Death Star. So it's one of those things that really sticks in your mind. And of course, the incredible Catherine Austin Fitts, from which, let me tell you, so much of the actual secret space research comes from, because she has an actual background in finance. She has an actual background in politics. She's not dreaming things up. She's not plagiarizing information, as we see so often with this group. And I got to tell you, this was the ultimate, because here I've watched them for years now plagiarize material and bring it out as their own. And now they're going to turn around and start suing people, in many cases, probably the very same people who did the research in the first place. So it's not going to stand. I guarantee you that. That's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is this has been a kind of spiraling situation since it came on. And the arrival of Corey Goode, I have to say, you always want to start things off with a first round TKO. Let's start at the beginning. This is something that didn't make it into my series, actually. It is a restraining order placed on Corey Goode by his former employer, Darling International. I'm going to read it. By the way, as I read this, I'm going to make a little caveat here that there's no question that the Sphere Being Alliance, Corey Goode, and his somewhat interesting, shall we say, business manager are going to be working on this video, as they do on any video, to take it down. And they use every means in the book, and I've never seen such slippery tactics used. Now, with all that in mind, I want, as soon as this episode is done, everyone everywhere to download this video and re-upload it on every platform, anywhere you find it. You have complete 100% copyright control. Go out and do it. You can't charge for it, but you can reproduce it, and I think that's important. Okay. But I do feel that it's important to see very often where these things come from. And when I was doing my work relating to the secret space program in 2015, and we were doing a conference in Texas with the Global BEM Group, which is the Breakthrough Energy Movement out of the Netherlands. Now, they had done a secret space program conference with Richard Hoagland, Timothy Good, Richard Dolan, just some really impressive names in 2011 in Amsterdam. And when they came over here, they were looking to figure out the best way to present it. And I worked closely with them in 2015 on the show, and we did a fantastic job. And what happened, though, was the first kind of warning signs about the situation that we were getting a hint of was that the Corey Goode people were out there slamming away, trying to become part of the show and demanding it, and in such a way that it seemed very orchestrated. And we instantly got the hint that something extra was going on with this guy who, after all, had just debuted on David Wilcock's Cosmic Disclosure Show. One thing I want to point out, which is that in his recent resignation letter, David Wilcock said that he was promised a finder's fee for finding these guys. So just keep that in mind. I'm actually going to read that quote. And Wilcock, as anyone knows, is mostly famous for pretending to be the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. I think now that we've done the episodes on the mystery schools, we can see just how much stolen valor something like that is. It's really quite despicable. And this is the nature of the marketing circus that has arrived in our backyard. And enough is enough. The trademarking of the secret space program is not going to stand. But we have to look at the people behind it to really get a handle on it. And I also think that somebody like Wilcock is a good example because he's really the focal point of where these whistleblowers and the circus ride, because he was doing the show on Gaia TV. Now, as we know, they're both canned, they're out of there, and they're looking for new employment. And I was talking with Olivia about this, and I said, I saw the 7-Eleven help wanted sign. Looks pretty good, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good,
it's
honest work. And you guys probably clear your heads out. I highly recommend it. But let's go back to what was happening just before Mr. Goode was put out there as a secret space program galactic ambassador, dancing ambassador, blue chicken ambassador. So let's take a look at this affidavit from his former employer. I'm going to read it, so bear with me. Like I said, you're watching Dark Journalist here. We're doing a special report on some scary monsters and super creeps. And it's great to have everyone here. We actually weren't even planning on doing a show. We do a show every Friday night, but we were going to play a recorded show and come back live next week. Well, plans changed. Okay, so my name is Jeremy Current. This is the affidavit by Darling International against James Corey Goode. That's our Corey, all right? My name is Jeremy Current. I'm over 18 years of age, of sound mind, and the information provided herein is true and correct and is based on my personal knowledge. I'm the Cloud and Data Center Manager for Darling International, Inc. in Irving, Texas. Now, when the show's over, I'm going to put the link. I've put the link up before, and currently, it's on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Dark Journalist. And I'm going to put all the links in the YouTube description when we're done so that you have this to read, because it's very lengthy and I'm only going to read short portions of it. So he's the Cloud and Data Center Manager for Darling International in Irving, Texas. James Corey Goode was employed in Darling's Information Technology Department and Systems Engineer for approximately 7 weeks, July 29th, 2013 until September 19th, 2013. During his employment, Goode reported directly to me, and he reported indirectly to Cooper Wilson, Darling's Director of Technology. Okay, so he's in this tech company, and he's a systems administrator guy, and they wind up letting him go after 7 weeks. Wilson and I notified Goode on September 19th, 2013, that he was being terminated for performance reasons, i.e. not doing the job. On September 21st, 2013, 2 days after Good was terminated, Corey Good, September 21st, 2013. Remember that Good started on Cosmic Disclosure in early 2015. This is literally a year and a half before. 2 days after Good was terminated, Good sent an email to Human Resources Manager Ryan Schaefer and Julie Brewster, listing certain items that Good claimed were left in his cubicle and requesting that the items be shipped to him. Brewster forwarded Good's September 21st, 2013 email to me on September 23rd, 2013. Okay, here we go. So on September 23rd, 2013, after we received Good's September 21st email from Brewster, Wilson and I visited Good's cubicle. Okay, they went to his cubicle. They searched for the items that were listed in Good's email, and when they visited Good's cubicle, they didn't locate any of the items. We took photos of the items in Good's cubicle, boxed it up, and preserved the items that were in Good's cubicle. Before signing the affidavit, I opened the box that we placed the items from Good's cubicle. Wow, this is one hot cubicle. It's become the center of a raging legal case. So basically, he's asking them for items that aren't there. May 4th, 2014, I viewed a video that Good uploaded to YouTube on May 4th, 2014, entitled Darling International Terrorist Threats at Home, a former employee, 5/4/2014. My God, I would love to have this YouTube video. It was on YouTube, which means even if it was scrubbed, there's a record of it somewhere. There's a record of it. These guys have a copy of it. So I'd like to get my hands on that. On May 4th, 2014, I viewed the video, Darling International Terrorist Threats at Home. The video, which according to Good was recorded at approximately 9:30 a.m. on May 4th, shows multiple items scattered outside an entryway to a home, including numerous magazines, one of which a knife has pierced through the front cover, a metal back scratcher, so on. The video also shows a bullet on the threshold to Good's kitchen window. Good states in the video that he discovered the items shortly before he recorded the video, and he speculates that either Wilson or former Darling employee David Collins placed the items in front of his house. Okay. I did not visit Good's house on May 4th, 2014. In fact, I've never been to Good's home. I did not put those materials on his property and have no knowledge, information, or other reason to believe that anyone at Darling did so. I've never seen any of the items that are shown in the video posted by Good. They have never been in my possession. None of the items were left at Darling after Good was terminated. He signs it. It's a sworn affidavit from his former employer. Terminated after 7 weeks. Good basically claims that, he was terrorized at his home, as he says, and that they left a bullet and a knife through a magazine and all this stuff. You're going to see this pattern, by the way. It's starting to ring a bell, isn't it? That little dark alliance try to cut my brakes. Sounds familiar? Yeah, we've lived through this dance quite a bit. The cabal is after me. Help! There were helicopters. They tried to shoot at me. There was a laser pointer on my chest. Yeah, this is it. Remember, this is the guy who said the Blue Avians were calling him Enoch on Jimmy Church's show, and despicably, Church backed him up and said, this is important, seriously. Okay, there's a little Corey as Enoch for you. I did that one, but you get the idea. And I have some great images tonight. So we're going to have to kind of, get a real context for who these people are and what's been going on. Because what recently happened, I think, with the fact that they sent these lawyers after Jason Rice, who's the guy who took over at Gaia. Hey, Gaia has a hot new whistleblower, and he has a bigger story. That's right. He's killing more ETs than the other guys. And this was because Emery Smith and his weird story of being autopsying 3,000 alien bodies. After a while, with no proof, it was kind of flat. The ratings sank. Boom, these guys are out. And now the new guy's there, Jason Rice, and he's telling these stories. So while he's telling these stories, he gets an email. And the email is from Llaneros Law. Of course, the last name is familiar to a lot because Teresa Llaneros is a major member of that group. But this is her sister and representing Jason, representing the Good Clan here. And Jason Rice is who it's aimed at. Now let's just get a quick note of this. I'm also providing a link to this in the description when we're done, but some people have read through this. I just want to grab kind of the salient points here. Okay, so it's directly to Jason Rice, and he on Twitter has asked everyone to read this, so we're not sort of sharing his private information. He's actually putting it out there and asking people to bring it forward, and here we are. Okay. It's come to my attention that you've been using terms belonging to my client, James Corey Goode, in various online and possibly otherwise broadcasts. That's interesting. You may not be aware that Mr. Goode owns certain common law rights and pending federal trademark rights in the phrases SSP, no he doesn't, 20 and back, no he doesn't. This letter is to inform you of those rights and to apprise you that if you are to further participate in the broadcast or publication of material using these terms, you are in violation of Mr. Goode's copyrights, trademark rights, and other existing IP rights. No, you're not. And that Mr. Goode will take any necessary precautions to protect these rights. To be completely clear, this letter is to firmly request, and listen closely, that you refrain from any use, distribution, production, sale, or advertising of his work related to his testimony regarding the secret space program. Okay? Any use whatsoever of Mr. Goode's testimony, story, or material that is not authorized by Mr. Goode. Where's that second one? Yes. Or any material that is not authorized by Mr. Goode. I'm sure you appreciate the gravity of the situation. This is hilarious because Joe from the Carolinas picked up on the gravity pun here. So obviously she's got a sense of humor, and working with these guys, she must. Please let me know at your earliest convenience your intention to comply with the foregoing. If you have any questions, I'm free to discuss. We appreciate your cooperation in this matter. That's kind of like, you know, when you turn somebody around and you twist their arm, they're like, we appreciate your cooperation. You know, it's nice to you cooperate. You know, we like that. By the way, don't slip on any banana peels on the way home, if you know what I'm saying. So we got the SSP Mafia on overtime here. So let's take a quick look now at the SSP trademarks. And these are hilarious. By the way, the interesting thing that's going on here is the audacity that they had to do this on pre-existing material. I mean, there's been material on this for decades out there. You know, it's basically like trying to trademark the word UFO. So I think we're going to be seeing more of this, but I think these trademark wars are right what they're in the middle of the heart of here, and we really need to get a handle on what's going on. So just so we know that we're on the same page, this is the actual trademark. It's available. I'm going to provide a link to it. But basically, there's something weird in here, which is that there's one of the provisions is for Halloween and masquerade costumes for men, women, and children. So I guess that's relating to the blue chicken. So let's get a blue chicken amen on that one. So they're largely talking about having the trademark used in entertainment services. One of the things that I pointed out when I spotlighted the marketing cult is that what they're up to is they wanted to grab a market. So in order to grab a market, they have to kind of pretend to be the market. So they come out and they say, you know, once upon a time, we'd market like Xena the Warrior Princess, for example, and you'd have a big hit show and everybody be happy and buy a bunch of merchandise around it. The scheme behind this was to present somebody as actually Xena the Warrior Princess and then market around that, because the market that they were going into was a market looking for the truth that the media wasn't giving them, for example. So just to give us an idea of what they're doing. Now, a marketing cult is not very widely understood, but I've studied them very well. One of my first writing assignments ever was on the Rajneesh cult and the aftermath of what happened with Rajneesh and how he built such a massive fortress compound with arms and drugs and money and everything up there in Oregon. And it's quite a story. And there's actually something on Netflix about it right now. And I do recommend that documentary. What I'm trying to indicate here is that the cult patterns are very, very deep in my research mind. So I spot them pretty easily. And when this one came up, what grabbed me the most was the outright plagiarism that they engaged in. Now, the people that they plagiarized were quite interesting too, and they did come forward, and I did encapsulate a lot of that plagiarism in New Age Deep State Part 5. Cliff High is on that list, and Cliff High has certainly done an able job against the Blue Chicken Cult. I don't think anyone's done a better job spotlighting the problem there, and that's what's necessary in the community. Too much looking the other way, too much, they'll just go away type thing. No, they're not going away. They're here to stay, and the only way, they're kind of like, the person that you have to drag out of the bar at the end of the night. It's that kind of situation. And in full blue chicken costume. That's the way it's going. So one of the things that's important, though, for us to keep in mind as we do this is where the op came from and who supported it. That is, who's brought this into the UFO community? Who brought it into the New Age scene? Who brought it into the secret space program? Wasn't Good on his own. Good, strikes me as a guy who can barely tie his shoes. And, I've spent a lot of time looking at Good and the things that he's done. This is certainly something that he isn't behind. Somebody there is pushing him and creating this scenario. And they've been busy as a marketing team, grabbing major points from established researchers like Catherine Austin Fitts, like Cliff High, like Dr. Joseph Farrell, who's here. By the way, one thing that was interesting is I tracked, when I was doing this as a precursor to New Age Deep State, I was tracking what they were up to publicly, and I noticed something when Dr. Joseph Farrell started doing a series of blog entries in 2016 relating to strange visitors at Antarctica. Now, a lot of people picked up on that, but the detail that was being used by the Good gang relating to this was lifted directly out of Farrell's blogs. It was unmistakable. This is when I knew the direct plagiarization was on. When it got to Fitz's work, it was very interesting because what they wanted to do is a kind of a smorgasbord. So the missing trillions became what they were grabbing there, but they would never attribute sources. They'd never say, well, Dr. Joseph Farrell came up with this, page 228, Breakaway Civilization book. Good, fine. Use the information, cite it. No, it was always, we've got our insiders and they told us this about Antarctica, or like our insiders tell us the missing trillions are being diverted and it's a special fund that Trump is going to give back to the people. The idea of this secret space cult appealing to Trump supporters is hilarious because Trump supporters don't like to take a lot of BS. And, I think when they get a closer look at this, some of the things that are going on now with the co-opting of the Q language for this group, the SSP group, forget about it. Okay, it's just not gonna happen. And whoever thought to the contrary that they could present Good and Wilcock as Judeo-Christian saviors to a Trump savior, I mean, it's absurd. I don't know who gave them that bad marketing advice, but we're going to see that blow up here also. But I do think it's important because remember, they're all about plagiarization. And what they like to do is they like to form a narrative out of other people's research, which we've seen over and over again. Now, I pointed that out in the special. And interestingly enough, with New Age Deep State, originally, they were only going to be in the first episode. Isn't that fun? So after the first episode, where I introduced something that they were doing called Corey's Kids. Corey's Kids is a marketing program they put together to appeal to millennials. And it was this is one of those plans that's truly cynical because what they wanted to do was grab these people, young people who are just trying to do something interesting, get involved, and load them up with all kinds of stuff and present them as different experts in different fields. Secret space program. Now, it might surprise a lot of people, and some not, that Jordan Sather, who does the Destroy the Illusion channel, the guy who recently put me on his enemies list on Twitter, that's funny. I haven't talked or done anything about him in over a year. This is the nature of the environment they've created. And what I want to point out is that the person behind all this, the person behind Corey Good's antics, the person behind this kind of trademarking, the person behind this movie that's coming out, Above Majestic, the person behind Jordan Sather, his manager is, full disclosure now, and I'm going to point all this out. The guy's name is Roger. He calls himself Roger Richards now. His real name is Roger Ramser Richards. This is where we should be focusing our attention. This is the person, not Clown Corey, not Jordan, who's behind pushing the op. Let's take a good look at that. And what are they up to? Well, the full disclosure now thing is really a marketing op. It came into the scene trying to absorb different lists, do different conferences. What his actual goal is, anybody's guess, right? But the idea is they're going to use issues and present it as a movement. So missing trillions are out there. People are interested in it. Good. Tick off the list marketing-wise. Marketing op. What else are people interested in? Antarctica. Tick it off. Okay, so I'm going to mix up this guy. I'm going to find this guy, Jordan. I'm going to put him together, and here's your tick off, Jordan. You're going to talk about, here's your lesson for today. You're going to talk about the secret space program. 1. You're going to talk about Antarctica. You're going to talk about the deep state. What's the deep state? Don't worry. We'll teach you what the deep state is. And they're going to absorb information from people like Fitz, like John Rappaport, like Joseph Farrell. You know, this stuff, it's an open secret. We all know what's been going on here. Now, what's interesting and unique is somehow they take that stuff and they mix it up with this fantastical galactic ambassador. I'm in touch with blue chickens who give me instructions from planet Krypton, right? So you could, in fact, say, when you look at it, if it were just looking at the op side, and we're going to get more into the op angle, you could actually say that the op could very well be to make the whole thing look stupid, which is where I lean heavily, because there's just too many unaccounted for things. Now, but just going on the straight thing that we have a marketing campaign here, let's look at a few crisscross angles relating to Corey Good's manager. Now, one thing that David Wilcock, who's in the new Above Majestic movie, it debuts on Halloween. It's kind of an interesting date. And Wilcock now is out there saying, oh, well, you know, I'm doing all this great stuff for disclosure. But when he was unceremoniously dumped from Gaia, he put out a resignation letter, which is kind of a clever thing to do if you think about it, because otherwise the buzz would be Wilcock dumped from low ratings from Gaia TV. So if I make a resignation letter public and then pretend, oh, that wasn't supposed to link, it gives the impression that I quit instead of getting canned. It's clever. Okay, so there's this whole thing in here, and out of the blue, Wilcock starts saying that Gaia TV is Luciferian. After working closely inside for 5.5 years, Luciferian this is the term. Now, there's always been rumors relating to Gaia TV and the owner, so this is not any great surprise. But how do you just come to it 5.5 years? I mean, are you only interested in their Luciferianism 5 years after the fact when they can you? Let's think about that. But anyway, since they brought in the Luciferian edge, the Wilcock good people, let's examine this a little bit. How are we doing over there, Miss Olivia?
Doing great.
We have a fantastic crowd tonight. You're watching Dark Journalist. I want to get through a lot of material before we bring our fantastic guest, Walter Bosley, on for a little bit of this. So I am whipping through it, and we are not holding back. We will, by the way, for our X series viewers, we're going to be back the week of Halloween. We do our shows Friday night at 7 p.m., and we'll be back with a new X episode on Friday. What is the Friday after Halloween?
Good question.
I think it must be. I think it's the. I'm going to say Halloween's the 31st, so therefore it must be the
2nd.
following.
It's
yes.
the 2nd.
Okay. Good. November 2nd. And so I do feel like we're rolling into a new period. But I'll tell you something. Although we're deeply, deeply engaged and committed to the X series right now, The secret space program is right at the very heart of the X series. So when somebody starts monkeying with the secret space program, they're monkeying with the X series, which at the heart of it, there's a major core of the secret space program and what they're doing around it, along with the secret space force. Okay. So a couple of quick things. So in his resignation letter, I'm just going to skim through a few things that Wilcock does. Remember Wilcock saying that he was the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, came to the scene actually by faxing coast to coast. He used to be the what they call the crazy guy who would fax Art Bell over and over again about a nuclear destruction in 1998 in New York City. That never happened, just like all of his predictions. Wilcock is the guy, and you can look this up online, who has dreams about Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson magically floats down and talks to him and says, Wilcock, you're going to be more famous than me. Well, that's interesting. And he says, you have to prepare for it, though. And then, Wilcock goes, well, my guides are telling me I have to build big fences to keep out all these crazy fans, make me bigger than. I mean, this is the nature of the kind of cult crazy mentality that we've been putting up with. And I think it's interesting because they've been behind this fold of Gaia TV, really. And that's who's been promoting them. And really, the idea is a bunch of old white guys figured out that this would be a good idea and put this stuff through, and something quite insidious behind it all. And we're going to really drill down into what that is. Okay, but let's go down to his letter. Okay, this is resignation time for David Wilcock from Gaia TV. To then edit Corey Good and me both into a show that aggressively attacks God is evil and Lucifer is good constitutes a breach of contract. I signed as an employee. Oh. Okay, so he's saying that they're making him look like a devil. Okay. By, basically having him in this Luciferian propaganda disguised as entertainment. Look, Gaia TV, it would not surprise me that they're doing that. But you've been there for 5 years. I mean, are you saying you never knew that? Only suddenly now are you offended by the fact that they're Luciferians. That's interesting. They've been signing your paycheck for 5 years. Maybe you might have wanted to pay attention to that a little earlier. In my opinion, Ancient Civilizations, which is the show they had him in, is Luciferian propaganda disguised as entertainment. Luciferianism is the religion of the elite globalist group I oppose. Yeah, maybe. Okay, the ongoing promotion of Lucifer on Gaia is also an enormous corporate liability in light of some of the claims GEM is attempting to make. GEM, right? Gaia Employee Movement. Now, interestingly enough, and I want to cite this for later, it's going to be very important. This supposed Gaia employee movement, GEM, is anonymous. Supposedly, employees inside Gaia who want to get out, or former ones weren't happy, whatever it is. It's anonymous, and all of a sudden they started to adopt the language of what? Q. The Q drops, as we've seen in the community. All these things come out where Q goes, boom, boom, boom. Red October. Get ready, patriots. Where we go one, we go all. Fine. But suddenly, Wilcock and his group, or this GEM group anyway, starts adopting that language. This is crucial. And we don't want to miss it because it explains a lot of the weird things that happened with Q when people started to monkey with it. Suddenly, Q was interested in UFOs after saying that they didn't exist. Suddenly, Q said, yeah, there's a secret space program. Oops, he almost signed it, Jordan, right at the end. There were some problems here. But this is also a key point I want to bring up. Wilcock goes, I was also promised a finder's fee for bringing new insiders into the program. I've never seen a dime for this, and for any of them, despite being directly responsible for Pete Peterson, who they ran a $60,000 GoFundMe fundraiser for a housing crisis that didn't exist. It was just a normal foreclosure. He should have called it what it was. He claimed the New Age, not the New Age, but the New World Order was coming to get rid of Peterson, And Bill Ryan came forward and said, I regret ever having brought Peterson forward because we never properly vetted him. And it turns out his military and educational, his entire background, all those credentials weren't real. So whatever happened to that money that you raised? What happened to the 60 grand that was raised for Pete Peterson's fake emergency, which was just a housing foreclosure? He wasn't being targeted. I mean, it happens, you know, housing foreclosure. Something very strange about all that, but let's move on. I've never seen a dime, and I was responsible for Pete Peterson and Emery Smith. So in other words, Gaia says, look, you find these guys, if we get some ratings going, you're going to be rewarded. Don't you worry about it. That gives him incentive to find people who tell tall tales. That's all that does. And he doesn't need any excuse. Wilcock is the biggest teller of tall tales on the planet. Let's look at this guy. I'm Edgar Casey. 1. 2, Obama's going to come out arm in arm with ETs, and it's going to be a major thing, and all. It never happened, right? Prediction after prediction. Nuclear war in New York City never happened. Cabal arrests. I found a thing from 2010, Cabal arrests on him and Ben Fulford. Same junk that they're spinning today. Never happens. Sells tickets, apparently. Fear porn, hope porn, over and over again. Recycle topics. Grab topics. Grab the missing trillions, which is work that's done over 20 years by Catherine Austin Fitts, who's the former Assistant Secretary of Housing, has been on our show many, many times. Runs Solari.com. So many people know about her work. Absconded over and over again with missing trillions. Professor Mark Skidmore has done that work with her now. Why don't any of these people who talk about missing trillions ever cite Fitts or Skidmore? Because it's their research. So, you know, going up there and saying an alliance is taking care of missing trillions is very disingenuous. All you're doing is saying, in my weird fantasy world, I'm talking to an alliance. But in the real world, the stuff going on in people's research, I borrow it, and then I talk it like it's my own. It's called IP theft. Now, this is an interesting thing. You should cite your sources. Now, what they want to do is take the trademark for things like the secret space program and prevent other people from bringing the real information forward. In other words, they want to stay on this fantasy trip where they have, you know, they're insiders to the alliance, or they're in with blue chickens who are giving them secret messages. And by the way, they just came back from Jupiter and had a big round table representing Earth. And don't worry, there's going to be, you know, there's going to be a big thing coming down. I mean, this is the state of that they're in, you know. And Church, I mentioned Jimmy Church, and I want to call him out on this program. I don't know much about his show, I have to say right off the bat. I've only listened to it maybe once or twice max, because it's not my thing. And I understand that he says he's just doing it for fun. That makes sense to me, because there's no depth going on there at all. But one of the things that he said last night about this issue of the copyright notice that Jason Rice, who is somebody who claims the same type of stuff as Corey Goode, you know, he got this legal notice, Jason Rice, and they threatened him, basically. They said, legally, if you do this, there's going to be legal consequences for you saying secret space program, talking about SSP. They don't own those terms. Corey Goode climbed out of a case where a judge barred him for life from visiting his former employer because he deemed him legally a threat. Let's wrap our heads around that for a moment, shall we? A judge barred him for life. It's not a temporary injunction. It's for life. That is, they saw him as such a threat to these people that he had done all this stuff to and pretended that they had broken into his house. The legal judgment on him is that it was all a fantasy. This is the person that David Wilcock brought on his show and pretended was connected to blue chicken aliens. That really the quality that you want when you go to research things? And then we have Jimmy Church comes on and he says, well, we're building our family. You know, it's looking like the Manson family right now. Okay. That's what it looks like to me. So if that's your community, I don't, you know, I have no idea where these people are coming from. But then the deeper we get, the better this is going to be. And I see Mr. Walter Bosley. You're coming in horizontal to vertical.
That's weird. because my
It's a spinning world.
there we go.
Yes.
Am I right now with you?
Oh yeah.
You just turned over for me.
I'll tumble
Wait a minute,
for
that sounded weird.
I was singing "I'll Tumble for You," so that's even
Ah.
worse. Walter, it's great to see you.
Yeah, good to. I'm glad I was able to get in here early. My stuff I had to do this afternoon worked out that way.
Fantastic. I'm going to rip it off a few more bullet points as we go. I'm getting a little bit of like a wind current around you.
I have a what?
Okay, now you're
Better.
better. I'm going to remind everyone here that you're watching the Dark Journalist Show. Yes.
Cliff High is in the chat right now.
Hey,
Wants to-
Cliff. Fantastic and great to see you out there. Cliff High plays a very interesting role in part 5 of the New Age Deep State, because when I cite 5 examples of IP plagiarism from the Blue Chicken Sphere Being Alliance cult against the community, and that included Linda Moulton Howe, who we demonstrated in many episodes. What they tried to do with her was put her name on a book, and she had no idea that they were doing that. I mean, how would you like to wake up one day and find your name on a book? This gives us an idea of their IP ethics, and they want to go after other people for using secret space program, which is a term that's been in use for 3 decades. I mean, this is really getting absurd, and it's the end. Let me tell you, it's the end of the line. I do want to cite a couple of quick things in relation to Church, which is that Church last night said on his program, and this is the only reason he's in my dialogue at all, because he joined in the fight for Corey Goode to have trademark rights to the secret space program. Now, I know very well that Church is deep with those guys and that they do shows together. They're all part of the same clique, and he puts them on his shows, and he runs their crazy stories and all the rest of it. That's all fine and good. However, you're not going to put the idea out there that it's okay to trademark the secret space program. So you've put yourself in the center of this, and it's a problem. I can tell you it's going to be a problem. There are legal issues around this, and it's just not going to stand. That's the thing that you really need to know about it. Also, who in their right mind, Jimmy Church, who in their right mind would tell their friend, and I know you're close friends with Roger Ramser, who is the business manager of Corey Goode and the Sphere Being Alliance, and runs Jordan Sather, who in his right mind would tell their friend that it's okay to trademark the secret space program? That's stupid. Do you think because you're supporting this dumb idea that it's going to go through? It's not. You're going to have a lot of problems. They're going to have a lot of problems. That was stupid. So problems, of a legal nature, people are going to start to see things. They're going to start to see weird things, connections here. They're going to start to see that it's weird that a show is going to have a guy come on claiming that Blue Avians made him Enoch, and that you promoting that to your audience. It's strange. It's going to show a lack of ethics. It's going to show that it's a circus. It's going to show what a lot of people already know. So, more of that kind of rhetoric about the secret space program being something that it's good that Corey Goode trademarked. Yeah, it's going to speak for itself. I find it particularly interesting and repulsive that anyone would come forward with that opinion. It's abhorrent to suggest IP theft. It's abhorrent to suggest that you go after other whistleblowers with legal papers. And it's abhorrent to take a guy who literally, has been deemed a threat by a judge for life against his former employers, having rolled out on Gaia TV, who I know you work for, and then promote him as the real thing. I mean, it's pretty shameful. So maybe you should rethink what you're doing with the fun over there. Maybe that's a good idea. In any case, the secret space program, IP theft will not stand. Keep that in mind. So a couple of quick things. This is, by the way, that's the blue chicken there. He's the one giving the orders. And apparently our friends here are the recipients. So we've got Jimmy Church here promoting Wilcock, who found good finder's fee, looking for a finder's fee on Emery Smith, didn't get it because the ratings weren't so hot. Okay, so I think now we get a pretty good idea of who we're dealing with. Wilcock, good. Church and Emery Smith. Somebody's missing in this picture. Who can tell me who's missing in this picture? I'm looking for it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
It is Corey's manager, Roger Ramsey. All right, so let's take a quick look at this. This is Corey's manager, Roger Ramsey. Runs something called Full Disclosure Now. Now, Full Disclosure Now is this weird nonprofit that he put together, and he started to kind of gobble up resources around different things. What the guy really is after is interesting, and I think that he needs to be brought forward and, should really, he needs to become normally focused on and vetted through a regular process, because we have no idea where this guy's coming from. Okay. So he did call himself Emma Gold for a while. And in general, I have to say that the multiple name part and the kind of looking for different issues, it strikes me as a lot of experimentation in general. And what I see is that when people like this come forward, we have to really pause and take a look at them and say, what is their agenda? What are they up to? Why do they show up in March 2016 and then suddenly dominate, try to dominate the secret space thing with Corey Goode and all the rest of it? I do feel that it's something that's important for us as a community to look at, and it strikes me as highly, highly unusual. Now, let's take a little trip back in time. That is the original Secret Space Program conference in 2014. And it was a little bit different, let's say. This is something that we put together, and Joseph Farrell, Richard Dolan, John Rappaport, Carol Rosen, really had a role in. And I think the quality of the work was so amazing. Later on, we got people like Linda Moulton Howe involved, and I think we were getting somewhere with the dialogue and with the language, honestly. What happened with the introduction of the Blue Chickens, with the introduction of this wild thing, with Gaia TV letting these people go on and on, is really that we got to a place where the quality of what people would get was just missing. And if you can imagine just a flashback to a UFO conference from an earlier time, Stanton Friedman giving you an overview. Let's look at John Mack, when John Mack was giving out incredible information. You could learn. There was an academic value to it. Suddenly, it became crazy people, crazy stories, and then when people would question those stories, they'd go after them legally. Sometimes, and they went after me a great deal when I did the New Age Deep State series. And the more they went after me, well, the more information I got. That's the way it works, because I'm curious that way. Now, their threats with me was they predominantly came into a situation where they said, well, we'll take down his channel. We'll do all these things in relation to the New Age Deep State. But that didn't bother me so much. I mean, deplatforming me was a stupid idea anyway. But the extent to which they went after people who had formerly been associated with Full Disclosure Now was a great disturbance to me. And we know that Groovy Bean was one of them. Annette O'Toole, who's also in the series, was one of them. And what happened really with that whole process was that the more those people came forward and shared their stories of working with the Full Disclosure Now, Corey Goode people, you know, I mean, the darker the stories went. Of course, Derek Faust told us about his experience also. And the takeaway was that there was an unethical group that had moved in and was bullying sort of weaker people who had put situations together but might be solo operators when they were doing conferences and all the rest. So this is the nature of the situation. And the most fascinating part of it for me was that it was all being portrayed, and the followers were being portrayed as love and light and all the rest of it. So, you know, the cult stuff is certainly a specialty of mine, and this really struck me as unusual. So anyone who would raise, you know, well, this story doesn't sit well with me, they would have these little task force swoop in and spew all this negative nonsense. So in general, I think we have to get a handle on what kind of a group would do that. What kind of a desperate situation are we looking at with people who fear the real thing getting out? And you'll find Corey Goode's work in the heart of the Project Avalon forum and the things he was doing there as a prelude reads kind of like a Rosetta Stone of what's going to happen after the fact. Now, this is all in my New Age Deep State series. All 5 episodes are up there. By the way, they repeatedly try to take episodes down, and we kept re-uploading them and all the rest of it. And you okay over there, Walter? By the way, everyone, you're watching Dark Journalist, and Walter's up to something. I'm going to remind everyone to go to darkjournalist.com and sign up for our newsletter, because one of the crazy things I think that's been going on is this incredible clampdown going on in social media, and we've seen it up close here. And before we go any further, I'm going to check in with Miss Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing over there?
We're doing great. Are you going to mention Michael Salla at all?
Well, Michael Salla is like their go-to guy for trying to smooth this out on the top. And what's weird about Salla, too, is that he had, you know, this kind of writing course that was a little bit different before all this came along. How you doing there, Walter?
Oh, hey, were you looking for me? And I was keeping my coffee. I'm going to be grabbing my coffee in about 30 seconds from the microwave, but here I am.
Okay, so what we can do, actually, we'll when you grab the coffee and you're back, then we'll get into everything with you, and I'll just wrap this section up then. Go ahead.
Are you going to mention the Gonzalez situation with Michael Salla now?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. This is also another piece of it, but before we go there, I want to see if there's any questions going on.
Well, there's tons of questions.
Yeah, let's start with a couple.
Okay, so Robert Kaufman right away said, why are you wasting so much time on a known fraud? Could you address that?
Well, what happens is, I agree it's a known fraud, and we're not promoting Corey Goode or the Blue Chicken cult, but it is important when they step over bounds and set a precedent by legally people for using the name Secret Space Program. That sets up a really bad precedent and is going to create hazards all around for everybody. So, you know, it's literally when somebody does something and they think nobody's paying attention, and they guessed wrong in this case, because of course we were paying attention and many others were too. And it's the kind of thing that I think it's a real community moment too, where it's just something that's not going to stand. And it's not just me that's saying that. We've cited the reports, and there's great people out there like Joe from the Carolinas who's doing it. There's a guy named C.W. Chanter who's doing nightly reports on this, and he has given it all his gusto too. So, you know, it's a rising wave. This was a bridge too far. It represents a violation. As a journalist, the first thing you do when people make that kind of improper, inappropriate imposition, and you know, come from this legal angle, going after people legally for a term there's no way in hell they could own. You make it a central focus. That's why we're on a special report here tonight. And one more question for you.
Okay, Gaia Sophia says, Olivia, if we all send $10, will DJ wear a blue chicken Halloween costume?
We're going to do something special on Halloween, it's true, but you have to be here for that. No, we're actually going to broadcast on Halloween. We're going to have a special show.
Okay, one last question. TJ Liberty Bell wants to know, can they have a chart of this? The players, I think the chronology.
It's all in the New Age Deep State, actually. And I highly recommend those reports. They're short reports because I was doing a short form video then. With the X series, we're getting deep detail. So they're much longer reports. But the New Age Deep State, you can actually watch probably in a couple of hours. All right, and with that, I am going to engage our guest, Mr. Walter Bosley. How are you, Walter?
I'm doing good, Daniel. It's good to be back with you, of course. It is a rather annoying subject, but that's kind of our bailiwick, is we have to deal with these things as
There's no
they
question.
arise.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you and I were both at the Secret Space Program conference in 2015 when some of these early shenanigans around good were going on, as you recall.
Mm-hmm.
So the process was in swing, was in motion at that point, way back then even.
Right. Yeah, he and his, shills, and I'm sure the people behind him, Wilcock and them, were trying to, quite frankly, impose him upon that conference because before the conference happened, because he was not invited to speak at this conference, which he was not qualified to do, because as we know, the people who put that on, we're looking for researchers, scholars, people who do a completely different thing than Corey and he and Wilcock and their circus do. So in the weeks leading up, I don't know how much of this you recall, but they were online in any form that would listen that was associated with this, almost demanding to know why Corey Goode was not invited to speak at this event. And how can you have a secret space program conference without Corey Goode being invited to speak? And then, of course, the first day of the event, there were two shills that they placed in the audience. And I say that because the first person to stand up and ask a question in the audience was a young woman who, the first sentence out of her mouth, I recall, was bringing up Corey Goode, was asking the panel, what we thought of Corey Goode and such. Well, I found subsequently that she appeared in one of the Mount Shasta various conferences that he and Wilcock and the organization had.
Right.
She was being interviewed. She's right there just going on and on about how wonderful this was. It was her. And so, and she's there the first day, and I don't recall her being there the second day. I think she got out of there, early the next morning. So to me, they sent her there to interject Corey into the conversation. And there was another person in the audience who did the same thing, brought up Corey Goode. And then before it was over, someone else had pointed out that they had lifted graphics from the Secret Space Program Conference website and were incorporating them with Corey and David's stuff. And they threw together kind of late, last minute thing. They threw together an online conference that, if you recall, when ours ended on Sunday, theirs started on Monday, the day after ours, ended.
Right. Yes.
So, this imposition, that was my personal experience with it right there. And I was at the one in San Mateo. I wasn't a speaker, but I was there. And, I think what it is even then they kind of shut down the people in the audience that wanted to inject that kind of stuff. And these guys were just determined. But it's the imposition tactics that really offended everyone.
No question about it. But it's interesting to me, too, because you do, like Joseph Farrell, the deep research around these topics when you present. And, I think in any kind of alternative research community, you're going to find there's always a sideshow going on.
Right.
But do you find that with the work that you're doing, it's very serious inquiry to move the culture forward, to over and over again see these, the crazy stories, the Emery Smith, the 3,000 autopsies.
Right.
Oh, the amount of ETs I've killed, this kind of thing that we're looking at over and over again. How does that, when you look at it, having done all the work that you've done in the Empire of the Wheel book series, which is going to be a TV show, you really, when you look at it, how does it strike you? I mean, just as somebody in the field.
Well, as it should strike anyone who approaches this stuff to any degree in a scholarly manner. You know, I'm a professional investigator. Okay. Past federal agent, currently licensed private investigator. So I go about these things as an investigator.
Right.
And when you do that, you know, it's evidence-based. Now, as a scholar, it's kind of the same thing. Your evidence you present with your cited references and sources. So when you see these guys show up that all they have to offer are these wild stories, they do nothing to back it up. Oh, no, excuse me. They do one thing to back it up. Wilcock loves doing this. We can back up Corey Goode with Emery Smith and Bill Tompkins, God rest his soul. And, you know, you name it, any of the other people that offer nothing. And we're supposed to accept that as a reference. And I don't think they're serious deep down inside. I think they know they're peddling BS.
Yes.
But, you know, it's all for money. But the people watching, most of them don't know. And what's frustrating is when you see these guys put before us offering nothing but wild stories, and you see how many people want to embrace that, you have to remind yourself that a good portion of this, you know, community we're in, they want to hear fantasy stories. You know, it's fun and it's entertaining in that way. And legitimate scholarship is dry. It's more boring than that. It's more fun to hear Emery Smith tell his nonsense and lies.
Well, it's interesting because there's an entertainment, you know, circus thing going on over here with dancing galactic ambassadors and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this incredible track of the work that you do, the work that Joseph Farrell does, scholarly, careful work. Richard Dolan and Catherine Austin Fitts, who's created some of the greatest breakthroughs around secret space research.
And they're all better than me. I need to throw that in there. They are superior to my work.
I definitely see it as one wave. And here we are right in the middle of it. And on one hand, you've got the Intel PSYOPs, you know, the Tom DeLonge, Louis Elizondo, CIA push. And then the dancing cult marketing push, the Corey Goods, the Blue Chickens, and that whole end of things. And, you know, you say to yourself, my God, you hope these people would get a better life going. You know, I mean, what kind of a life is it when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, you know, I'm the next guy who's going to promote doing 3,000 alien autopsies. I mean, you know, you wonder about the quality of people. And I think this is what we're getting into, which is the debasement of the alternative research community on purpose by groups that push forward these market-ready packages of galactic ambassadors. And, you know, there was one thing during the course of the New Age Deep State reports that I was doing, which was they were making disclosure backpacks for the Corey Goode gang, and they had, like, you know, a reptilian with a little kid, and he's like, here's your disclosure backpack. And I was thinking to myself, my God, you know, if they knew anything about the research I'd done around this cult, how horrified any parent would be to look at a disclosure backpack from Corey Goode's 14-foot reptilian. I mean, this is pretty heavy.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's a similar thing that I think is going on over with TTSA in this astroturfing of you know, community support. These TTSA fanboys, you know, maybe I'm ignorant, maybe I've been too busy working on my books, but there's a lot of those guys. I never heard of them before, and they'll say, "Oh, I've been around." You know, I guess one of them had been around on one of the podcasts that I've done, but I didn't remember him. And but these other ones, and yet suddenly there they are. I think it's similar with you know, Corey Goode. Is it seemed like there was just too much material ready to go and be foisted, like it was all from the beginning thought of as an entertainment package. Now, people will say, well, Walter, you've sold your books to be a TV show. Let me illustrate the difference. I started investigating Empire of the Wheel in 2008 after Ann Walker, a local librarian, told me about the Cora Stanton mystery. I investigated that for 2 years. It's the coffee. I investigated that for 2 years before I decided to write a book.
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't intending to write a book. Then I wrote the book and it was published in 2011. 2013, 2 years later, I came out with the second book. And then finally, the data that had accumulated for a course of, over 6 years, the third book in 2014. Now, the third book, that was 4 years ago. Okay. And certainly I didn't go into it before writing Word One. Oh, okay. I'm going to have this great vision of this being a TV show and maybe a movie, and I'm going to have lunch pails and underoos and kitchen utensils, all with the Empire of the Wheel logo on. No. It was, it was a legitimate subject, a legitimate mystery. I did the research, and the product was merely the book, which is the report of my time, and I have a right to sell that because that represents the value of my time. And it wasn't until 4 years after the third book, 7 years after the first one, that a producer comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to make that into a TV show." So I think you can obviously see the difference there.
Absolutely. And I think it's good, by the way, to try to work with larger media. I do it.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a HBO special last November. We have more work coming up with those guys. And,
Great.
the thing is, I enjoy that. I think it's fantastic, actually.
Well,
And
I don't think any of us begrudge. I honestly, I'm Boy Scouts honor, none of us begrudge if Corey sells his thing to Hollywood or to TV and he gets a cartoon out of it. That's great. I hope he has that kind of success. Here's the problem we have is that he's been presenting this stuff as the God's honest truth, and that's a load of BS. He doesn't back it up. The day he can prove it is the day, all of us will say, "Oh my gosh, he's right," and what a world that will open up. But, he knows he can't prove it. He knows it's made up, but he's so deep into this it's real thing that, he's going with it. But that's what bothers us is he's presenting this as absolutely a fact. Just take his word for it.
Absolutely. Miss Olivia?
Richard Dolan has joined the chat.
Mr. Dolan, it's great to have you there. We did a fantastic 2-episode run with Richard Dolan, but I'm thinking it's like 4 years ago now. And I was so ready for that because I put down every case that I was interested in and just hit him over and over. And the details were like, ooh. But it's great to have him out there.
Well, and you guys had great rapport. I love that interview, and we would love to have Richard on again, of course.
Absolutely. And we're going to do that. It's interesting too.
Gigi Young.
Hey, Gigi.
Hey, Gigi.
It's fantastic. I do want to say this about Gigi. It's great to have you out there. Just to give you an idea of how Gigi, she's really kind of such a caring person about these things. Is when I was telling her some of this stuff, and there I am going, like, can you believe this? And Gigi leans in and she goes, "I think they're mentally not well." That's her, Gigi.
So
It's
kind.
like, yes, that's exactly.
You mentioned before I came on that the term secret space program has been around for decades, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but Bill Ryan sent me this information today or posted it for me.
Hey,
He says that William Hamilton, Bill Hamilton, we all remember him and his books. And again, your judgment of the books are your own, but Bill found where he used the phrase secret space program 3 times in his book Cosmic Top Secret in 1991.
Yes.
So
Excellent point. Yeah.
91.
That's 27 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. So
Hello?
come on, Corey.
Trademark office. Give me a break.
Yeah.
But the audacity of trying to do that. Now, what that tells me is that the marketing op is kicking up. And this is what is a danger to the community and the danger of the things that we're doing. Now, here's the thing. It's a danger to the researchers that got me into dark journalism. The work for Catherine Austin Fitts that she's put out. When she goes to the secret space program now and reports about the missing trillions, they have this little lawyer person running around slapping these legal letters on people. It can't stand. And this is the nature of the thing. What it is really, and they can come forward and say they did it for whatever reason, and they had some horrible excuses. And I will say this, that the manager, Roger, came out with Corey to try to like do damage control. And it's one of the worst things. It's up on their Facebook page, and these people, even their own people, are like, wait a minute, what are you trying to do? Stifle things, And they're like, don't worry, you can still talk about it. Well, thank you. The Constitution gives you free speech. Thanks, Corey. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. Little free speech. Hey, Walter, don't worry about it. Corey Good's going to let us talk about the secret space program. That's great.
Right. Yeah, I'm so glad too. It was brought up to me, just like someone asked you earlier from the chat. Hey Daniel, why waste your time on this? It's all fake. And I think the point of us talking about this is because it is an issue that needs to be addressed. We can't just ignore it. And I'm trying to find. I apologize here. I'm trying to find. Somebody had linked I believe it's in Randy Morgan's thread on the discussion on this. They had linked, I think her name's Efro or something. This article on the Electronic Frontier Foundation's website, and the title is Urban Homesteaders Win Cancellation of Bogus Trademarks. Now, this is an article from March of 2017. In the article, it talks about how the courts indeed threw out these bogus trademarks that these unscrupulous people had tried to get. But here's the problem. It took the people 6 years to fight this and get the courts to rule against the trademark office's awarding of this in these 6 years. Now, I mentioned this to Joseph Farrell earlier today. 6 years in our world, in our community, can just ruin and wipe out a researcher and author's whole efforts. Can just wipe out, what they're trying to do, because, that's an eternity when you're dealing with stuff like this. And to think of 5 or 6 years of a complete clown like Corey Goode, and that the rest of that circus of boobs, Wilcock, Jimmy Church,
oh my God,
Roger the Knucklehead. To think that for 5 or 6 years they could just be throwing these legal letters around, and who knows, to what extent they'll back this up. That's something that needs some attention, the way we're giving here. Now, I know people said, well, this stuff is pending. This is pending, which makes him throwing these letters around all the more worse. Okay, because if it's pending, that means he doesn't own anything yet. And for the Llaneros law, whatever they are, to be throwing these cease and desist letters at people when technically it's pending and they don't own anything yet, that's just the height of arrogance. That really shows you what they're about.
No question about it. And again, there's a little more hiding behind the Corey's kids there, because it's Teresa Llaneros' sister, right? So you put her out there. She's taking all this flack, right? For what? For representing Corey Goode and his bogus claim. What did she walk into? This is what they do. Like, I'll tell you what, I can take all this with Goode, Roger, Wilcock, let's have them out here defending this. Instead of having, people going after their surrogates or like, Llaneros' sister or whatever. It's ridiculous. This is how they always do things. They pull out the little Corey's kids people, they put them out there. They're like, you deal with the house, so we'll hang out back here and see, and manipulate things behind the scenes. It's not going to work.
They put out the pretty young people is what they do. The young faces, Jordan and Teresa, and why is everybody so mean to that wonderful guy, Corey? So golly, pretty. It just.
Hey, listen, Corey. He's recruiting the Corey's kids. Here we go.
There you go.
You're tight. But the thing is, my thing with them, the Corey's kids, and I made this clear when I did the report too, which is those are young people just trying to get into something meaningful. It's the people pushing them forward with the phony, fake narrative, dropping legal letters on people. That's who we want to deal with. Those are the people who are making the violation, and the people backing them up in this unethical fashion. Like you mentioned, Church, and I got into Church earlier saying, I think it's great that Corey is doing this trademark stuff. I mean, that's
He
pretty.
would.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, let's take a look at that. So because you run shows and because you're tight and you're trying to like get into Hollywood or some BS like that, you think it's good that this guy should be illegally absconding and doing IP theft? I mean,
And threatening people.
yeah.
Really.
I mean, where are you coming from? Who are
Here's what gets me about churches. He loves to go on about everybody being jealous of his pals.
right, yeah.
Because we're critical. Man, if I hear one more time somebody wanting evidence, my head's just gonna explode. He does that whole
That was
thing.
Little Church mixed with Bill Cosby. I think.
Yeah, well, it's the best I can do. But it's like, man, oh man. And what I thought was hilarious, I forgot whose show it was, but Jimmy was on a show. It was this summer, and somebody was confronting him with this stuff, and he was trying to do a weird backstep dance.
Yeah, right.
Because they were pointing this stuff out. It's like, come on, Jimmy. And he was like, well, I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible for what my guests say. And I wished I would have recorded it. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. But that just shows you the guy, he's thinking of his show. He gets ratings. And, okay, fine. That's his business.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, check your ethics at the door, basically. We're doing business. So if you can call Corey Goode Enoch and you start promoting that, then that's the way it works. What shocks me, and I want to point this out, it's in the New Age Deep State. This, which was something that they put up, this is Corey Goode Consciousness Renaissance Publishing Group with Roger Ramser, and this is Linda Moulton Howe's name on the banner at Contact in the Desert 2017. This is what I called them out for. She wasn't any part of the book as it was discovered. And Linda herself made a statement to that effect, and she had nothing to do with the project. And then they were just sticking her name on it. And at first they said, because I gave them the chance to reply over and over again to the series. And instead they said, we've got legal eyes on you. We know that you are James Comey's love child with Princess Rothschild and Hillary Clinton or something. I mean, this is the mentality that we had going on there. And what's interesting is the amount of threat letters that they sent to people associated who had defected from Full Disclosure Now. This is very important. Groovy Bean, Derek Faust, incredible. Derek Faust, I've never seen a group go after a video more in my life than the people who wanted to take down Derek Faust's testimony from episode 4 in that video. I did the episodes. They always hit the episodes hard. I've never seen anything like that. They were daily through YouTube trying to take it down with frivolous complaints about it. And really, you go through the episode and you wonder, now Derek is somebody who had been in the Navy, served in the Iraq War. I mean, this is a guy who had this incredible background. And I think that the problem was, don't want him out there. He worked inside with those people. He knew what they were about.
Yeah.
Can't have that out there. He knew too much. And so this is the type of stuff that fascinates me behind the scenes with them. But, over and over again, when I put episodes out and when I talk to people now, so many people are catching on. There's such a wave of like, we don't want this garbage anymore. We want to move on.
Right. I
call it the lowest moment for the alternative research community. The Corey Goode circus, the Emery Smith junk, the Wilcock, I'm Edgar Casey, all that junk. The Cabal arrests are pending since the last 10 years, right? They never.
Oh, yeah. And okay, now from this point forward, I'm going to say something that from this point forward, they'll probably find a way to incorporate it into their shtick. But go back and listen to any Corey Goode or David Wilcock show up till this moment. And I'm not aware of, or I doubt you'd find where there were technical difficulties during their show, somebody jamming their signal or messing with their show like other shows get messed with. Now, of course, they hear me say that. They'll say, oh, yeah, we got to do that so we can claim this too. I will say that I'm somebody who, you know, my background, I was an insider in the national security industry. I never really considered that those guys, the national security community, was looking at me or anything I said. None of that stuff happened to me until earlier this calendar year. And only when I went on 2 or 3 shows in a row, because I had been asked a few times, I had actually, you know, put my mind to it and offered my opinion on to the extent that I think a secret space program, you know, its material existence. And all I was doing was commenting on what I think the ships would be like and the number of personnel. And 3 shows in a row that when I first started talking about that, had technical difficulties booted off.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, you know, maybe I hit, was hitting close to home. And not everything I said was, you know, the first time anyone had guessed that kind of thing. Like, you know, I'm in that camp that says the ships are pretty much like U.S. naval submarines because they've been doing those for a century and they've perfected that. Well, why not just put it in space, you know, a space version of that? And, you know, that's about how big it would be and such. And it was just my, you know, it wouldn't be these Starship Enterprises and all this ridiculous stuff that Corey and David and others claim, you know, this big fleet.
The dark
fleet. Yeah. And I said that it would have like probably about 9 or 10,000 dedicated personnel. What do I mean by that? 9 or 10,000 people whose job every day, 24/7, fully briefed in, actually hands-on going into space. Only 9 or 10,000 personnel who are actually 100% assigned as, you know, whatever they call the secret space program. And anyone else, it would be compartmentalized. It would be only need to know. They wouldn't maybe necessarily know everything or stuff. So when I threw out those numbers and was talking about the sizes of the ships, that's the only time I ever got that kind of attention.
Isn't that fascinating? Yes.
So,
well, you know, I think that gets to it. Also, let's think about it from an intel level. Obviously, you were in intel.
Counterintelligence in the intelligence community. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I was, okay.
So when we look at that, wouldn't there be some incentive, let's say, on the intelligence side, to roll out the crazies, to just roll out worst junk around a very important topic that had been maybe turned because of the efforts of somebody like Fitz, for example, bringing the missing up and tying it to space? That's pretty dangerous for the deep state. So you might go back there and say, we've got to do something. We have to make this stuff look like it's a joke. Now, when I started dark journalism, I set up 3 parameters, and here's how they work real quickly. The official story. That's what they roll out there to protect the institutions. The counter story, guys like you who pick apart the official story, Peter Dale Scott, Joseph Farrell, they know what's really going on. They're very often called the conspiracy theory, but it's the counter story. And underneath that, junk conspiracy, the third force, you know, that whole thing, flat Earth, you know, galactic ambassadors, this type of thing. And that drives people looking into the counter story back to the official story because they're like, you know what, that's too crazy. I thought about a secret space program, but if they promote 14-foot lizard guys, you know, preventing galactic ambassadors from getting assassinated, I'm going to go back to the official story. It doesn't exist.
Right. And you're hitting the nail on the head because I've said this before. I think we might have discussed it before. Go back to these secret space program conferences of 2014 and 2015. Yeah. Now, what, you know, you guys, Jeroen and them from the Netherlands and stuff, putting these things together, I think it's very possible. I'm very confident in this, that the speakers and researchers who appeared at those 2 conferences were advancing true secret space program research farther than it had ever legitimately been. That it's very possible that whoever is pushing the Corey Goode thing and handling it, and whatever agency is behind TTSA, these were greatly in response to those secret space program conferences. Absolutely. Because all those legitimate researchers, the work they were doing, Catherine Austin Fitts' work especially, you know, look at McCandlish, Michael Schratt, and all these guys that were pointing to actual technical things, everybody. they were getting too close to the truth and exposing too much of it. So, you do the first one and they look at it and they go, okay, we'll see. And then the second one, wow, it's even more popular, more successful than the first one they did. Okay, this is getting traction. People are starting to pay attention. Hell, they're paying attention to Bosley, for crying out loud. That's alarming. So they're thinking, okay, we got to do something.
Right.
Who are we developing? Well, we've got this goof, David Wilcock, and his buddies. Let's impose them on this. And then, of course, we're going to roll out this. We're working this Tom DeLonge guy, and I think he's been totally worked by the Intel community.
Yeah,
I don't think it's his fault. I do think Tom DeLonge is sincere about his interest and what he thinks he's doing with TTSA, but I think it's totally handled by the Intel community. Not totally, when you consider his appearance on Joe Rogan, but you know what I mean. He's being handled. And I really do think, look at the timing of those things and look what they've accomplished. The first group, the first wave that came at us in 2015 and all through 2016 was the Goofy Circus. What did that do? That smeared a veneer of a lack of credibility on the secret space program topic. And then you follow that up with TTSA, which, okay, now we're the former government guys, most of us CIA, and now we care about you and what you know about UFOs, and we're just like you, and we're the ones to listen to us. And it was a 1-2 punch. And what has it achieved in the last 2 years or 3 years since Bastrop? Unfortunately, because they didn't do another one in 2016, unfortunately, this 1-2 punch of the good Wilcox Circus and the TTSA has successfully derailed what was the best and most serious, legitimate secret space program research that had ever gone on.
Well, there were real sources, there were real documents to follow up. There were real trails. There were real, true resources. Incredible people looking at the stuff.
Right.
That was the direction. And I think of that when I think of the UFO and alternative research community, even a decade ago. You had that, even with people who did work like Stanton Friedman, people who did work like John Mack. That was a Harvard professor risking everything to go into this, find out the link between consciousness and abduction. Right. It's a totally different thing than the singing galactic ambassador. I mean, we have to take a snapshot and say, it's been a low moment, and they just jumped the shark. And, the bottom this is the bottom. And that's why you're feeling the backlash through the entire community, rippling everywhere through all these different people doing episodes about it. And, I did a 5-part series, and I held the 6th part because I said, what I'm going to do, I think enough information has been put out there. And I think at this point, let's see how it rolls. Let's see how it goes. And to find ourselves, before now they're launching this movie, right, which is Above Majestic, the implications of a secret space program. There they are in commerce, by the way, supposedly with a nonprofit company making it, right? Let's look into that. There they are in commerce using the secret space program name. And then, boom, the trademark stuff, and taking Jason Rice, who's the guy who took Good's place on Gaia, and running after him with a little legal paper saying, hey, if you do this again, there's going to be legal consequences. Well, guess what? By taking that action, you just alerted everybody to what you were up to. So good job. Yeah. Now we're awake. Thank you very much.
Yeah. How did, is there any story on why, because Corey was, the big star there, and then I had heard a while back that he got booted from the Gaia show. Was it just a mere, gosh, we love this guy's shtick even better than yours, or I guess there was some falling out between him and Wilcock and all this drama. I think that lends to Good being kind of desperate now because he lost his
question.
Gaia thing.
You're getting right to it, and this is an excellent point, which is, what do you do when you've been thrown out of this gig, and basically that was your main source of legitimacy besides Jimmy Church covering for you at every turn?
I don't know how legitimate that is, but go on.
Exactly. So we take a look at it all and we say, what do you do? Well, your new strategy is I'm going to go around trying to sue people, and that'll be my new revenue stream. Hey, we
Yeah.
know that, supposedly there's reference to a lawsuit that he has against Gaia in David Wilcox's resignation letter, which is the "I'm going to resign before you can fire me" letter. I mean, so let's
Yeah.
take a look at what those dynamics are all about. And however these guys play out, they could play out all their weird, freaky stories. That's one thing. The reason I
Right.
did the story on them in the first place was
Mhm.
because they had plagiarized, Cliff High with his Antarctica work. As a matter of fact, Cliff did a great thing, and what he decided to do was put like this bogus information out to see if they pick up on that.
Right.
So he put out this little packet of information, and the test worked. And as soon as he came forward with that, and we put it in the episode, suddenly the big higher ups on the inside with Wilcock and Good said, "No more information about Antarctica, boys. We're going to hold that for ourselves."
Yeah.
And therefore, they were like, "Oh, the plagiarism thing will land in court. Can't go after that one anymore."
Oh, they were. I think I don't know if you remember, I did a video sometime last calendar year, in which the basic story that they were peddling and others were talking about. I was told this when I was an agent 20 years ago. The same basic story about Antarctica by my professional mentor, a guy who was essentially my direct superior in my Intel community related career.
Right.
And he told me this 20 years ago, over 20 years ago now. And he said that it happened around 1959 or 1960. The team that found the big hole, and they went in and it just scared the hell out of them. His words, it scared the hell out of them what they found. Huge, giant, ancient machinery. And I was told this in the late 90s, and I was told, on the QT, it was definitely not something I should tell anyone else or talk about publicly. I believe by 2004, 2005, I had shared it privately with Greg Bishop, and then subsequent to that, Joseph Farrell, around 2004, 2005. So they can vouch that, at least as early as 04, 05, I said I'd heard this story. And this was being presented and really pushed by Wilcock and them as the latest thing. Well, what are we to take from that? Okay, either it's a true story that people are getting the details as to when it happened mixed up, or it is a complete fabrication of the intelligence community that is told to people being brought up in the ranks as ink. Okay. In other words, in my career, my mentor he was grooming me for something. Okay. And this could have been just their standard BS story on that level to tell me, to then see if it pops up somewhere downstream, and they can say, well, I told Bosley that, I told Walter that, and he opened his mouth. See,
Right.
That's how this could have started. And it could be either not true, or it could be partially true.
Right.
I think there's a nugget of truth to it, but I acknowledge that the whole thing could just be one of those ink stories to test your asset. I've been in that business of vetting assets, and you have to test them, and you give them BS information, or you give them something and see if you can trust them with it. Now, it sounds like maybe, whoever got this out there publicly in our recent years was told this in the course of their career, and they opened their mouth about it.
Interesting.
And,
Yeah.
that's how that could have happened. But nobody wants to hear that, again, because it's not as fun.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the heart of disinformation you're getting at there, is Lee Harvey Oswald's birthday. Okay, he would have been 79.
Today?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Happy birthday, Lee. Caught right in a CIA story crossfire and used as a patsy. Now, it's very interesting to me because there's intense intel CIA manipulation around the Tom DeLonge operation dealing with TTSA. Luis Elizondo, the face of counterintelligence, pushing this story. Fox News, New York Times, all that stuff, and just really coming up with these stories and saying, well, he was running the TTSA desk and all the rest of it, or he's running the AATIP.
ATIP.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about this is we've come forward and shown a few researchers have these pictures of him in this Missouri newspaper in 2010, and he is running a shipping company.
Yes.
He is not at AATIP headquarters. Now, how do you equate that? Because that's prime time for AATIP.
He could totally have been CIA in doing that. And here's why. And I've said this elsewhere. I said it recently. This is what I think. This is my personal opinion based on professional knowledge and experience. I think Elizondo he's retired as a staffer, but I think he's continuing to work for the agency as a, some degree of cover, shallow cover to not deep cover, contractor. And what they would do is, he finishes his work as a staffer on Friday, and on Monday he signs the contractor contract where he's still working for the CIA, but he's a 1099 guy, for example, is what they call it. He's a contractor, and his cover is this shipping company. Okay. And that's how they pay him. And it's a real company. They would tell him, look, we could get a business license, actually have people running this company, but your job will be whatever his job is. And I think part of his job is presently being part of TTSA. That's his operation. And he might have worked the ATIP desk for real when he was a staffer. Okay. And so they incorporate that into, okay, how are we going to use Lewis when he gets out? Oh, here's how we're going to use him. And you try to keep your undercover legend, what you make up about your undercover identity. If it involves your true identity, what you want to do is keep as much of your cover identity, under your real name especially, as true as possible, with just a few things that aren't what they seem to be, so that it's easier to backstop. Okay, so if somebody digs into him, of course he's Louis Elizondo. Of course he was a staffer. Of course, they can prove he worked the ATIP desk. Of course he had the shipping company, because that was his assignment, start a real shipping company. Okay, that's how these things work. And I think it's, my gut tells me that he's still working for the CIA operationally, and the shipping company does not. That fits exactly with him being CIA. Okay,
it actually gives us an idea of them working a cover for him in the past, just like him working TSA as a cover now.
It's easy. It's just a matter of paperwork. And okay, imagine, and you know what? I'm not saying anything that you probably haven't seen in movies or TV shows, but imagine a guy sitting at a desk with 5 telephones. Okay, phone 1 rings. He answers, Acme Toy Company. Hey, did Daniel List work for you? Oh, yes, he did. Blah blah blah. Okay, thank you. You hang up. Phone 2 rings. Oh, Acme Ball Bearing Company. Hey, did Joe Schmo work? Yes, he did. But you follow me? And so it's realistic to suspect that in Louis Elizondo's case that he's still CIA.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating. The TTSA just became the very face of the CIA, moving in on the UFO field and creating this idea of the threat. There's this threat out there. Yeah. It's not aliens, but we want to get congressional funding going for this thing, and we want to sell stuff. I mean,
Isn't it eerie though how what they're trying to set up there resonates with the Carol Rosen story about von Braun's list of 5 things? I mean, think about that. Yes. And we've got these CIA guys. Now we're going to be the ambassadors to go between the government and you, the people, about what's going on with UFOs and possibly aliens, even though they tried to tap dance and change that when everybody called their bluff. But, it's eerie how it resonates with what von Braun said about how they're going to fake an alien invasion. And
it is very creepy. I'll tell you, studying the role of John Brennan in this is also very interesting because
Ugh.
he gave the drone king himself, Obama's drone king. You know,
I despise that human being.
want to get one guy with a Predator drone at a wedding, you know, you're spotting him. Hey, there's only 60 people around him. I'll tell you what, we'll take them all out as just collateral damage. How does that feel?
Yeah.
Nice guy. So this guy comes forward and starts talking about UFOs after Elizondo comes out and says, I think we need more investigation into that. By the way, Elizondo, being in the CIA when he was, would have reported to Brennan. So, you know, let's think about this. The higher echelon of the CIA, finally, you know, we've been tracking them for years. Peter Dale Scott's work, I mean, all the way back to 1947. This is an extra constitutional agencies. When you get around space, they turn up. You know,
here's another thing. There's a lot of people out there that are under an impression that MK Ultra is something that was born out of the conspiracy theory world, and I've had to point to people in the last 2 weeks. No, folks. MK Ultra is history.
Yes.
They had to spill the beans to Congress in 1973, very famously. MK Ultra is real. Now, who was MK Ultra? CIA psychiatrists and psychologists.
Right.
Who's on the board at TTSA? CIA psychiatrists and psychologists. Okay, folks, after MK Ultra and after the Benowitz affair, we now want to embrace CIA psychiatrists and psychologists in the UFO community?
So bizarre. This is amazing to me. Now, you get MUFON, and they're like, we have as our main speaker, Luis Elizondo, right? Oh, nice big hit there. Thanks for letting the CIA into the store. Two, year before, who was their main speakers? Corey Good. And
Corey Good, Bill Tompkins, Andrew Basiago. I forget the fourth. It was just, and if Dolan's listening, he knows this well. And
he was there.
His part of that was wonderful. I loved that. And I mean, yeah, the whole circus show.
You have to Dolan credit just for showing up with that kind of environment.
Oh yeah, but you know, I loved his comments on the panel. Good was. Did you notice Good? People, go back if you haven't seen it. Go back, find the video. Corey's over there, you know, just being a silent little waif, you know, as Dolan's laying it out. And
no, listen, it's because the chickens, you know, the blue avians were giving him the messages. So he had to do that. He had his radio.
Until the triangle heads came in, right? He's got the big yellow triangle heads now.
I think in a way the triangle heads are a kind of a ballsier version than the blue chickens. It's sort of like, wow, who came up with that?
Let's psychoanalyze this. The triangle heads, they look like caution signs here in the States, right? Okay, maybe this is his psyche, his subconscious saying, slow down, Corey, caution. You know, I don't know, but I'm not a professional. That was it in humor.
I like that because,
assessment.
Well, you know, when you get the good thing and then the MK Ultra thing and you weigh it out, but it's like, this is feeling pretty good, actually. No question.
Yeah, I think Corey Good, it was handled by somebody. I definitely think Tom DeLonge it was handled by. I mean, come on, look at DeLonge. I was brought in and told that I was on the right track, and I was really close to it. And I'm sitting here as a former counter-espionage operations agent, you know, from my background, and I'm going, oh my God, they ran a classic theme on him. You're special. Golly, we're going to bring you in and show you the goods. And it apparently the stuff they showed him was the Mylar balloon video and a Billy Meyer ship. I mean, I was recently on a panel sitting next to Michael Horn. You can imagine how that went.
Oh, no.
I could not keep a straight face. The audience knew it. And I'm, you know, but you know, when I saw DeLonge pushing, you know, a Billy Meyer ship, this was before Photoshop. Oh my God. I knew, okay, his handlers either pushed him to that to discredit him finally, or they're just shaking their heads going, oh crap. You know,
I see them. Yeah, I definitely see them leaving him holding the bag. You know, this thing about the SEC filing and 37 million. That's bad news.
But remember, that's a deficit, not a debt, but it's still not good. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Let me show you for sustainability. You work for a company, you give them stock in the company. The next year, if you did 37 for this year, it's going to be more next year when you come.
It should be, right?
Yeah, it should be. So, you know, let's say it's 40, okay, just a little bit more. Now you're 75 million in debt, quote.
Yeah.
This is kind of fascinating too, the way that it's been rolled out. We're looking at a situation where the CIA openly comes into the UFO community and says, here we are, we're rolling it out. Elizondo's your man. He was there. And all of these people are, as you were pointing out, some different asset of the CIA. So it's an open CIA corporation working with who? Lockheed Martin. And then you get this guy Mellon, who was deeply involved in the Clinton and Bush II administrations. I mean, those are the people you want leading UFO disclosure? I don't think so. The drone king? This guy will kill 60 people at a wedding to get one guy?
John Brennan is just, he reeks of nefarious. Yeah. I do not like that human being at all.
It has to be looked at really closely operationally, because you look at it and you say, here's their high level op. They always work high-low, always. Just like, when we look at different CIA operations over time. A story came out recently in all those JFK document dumps that we were sifting through, and it was quite fascinating. It showed the CIA had followed a JFK researcher from 1994 to 1998 because he had done conferences in South America. And this guy's well known. And the story is absolutely legitimate. It comes out of their own records now that have been declassified. Just to show you, like, the high-low thing is always going on. They are always tracking. Why is the CIA interested in a JFK researcher 30 years after the fact of the assassination going to South America?
No, because when he's in South America, he's closer to who is still down there, and I'm one of those that thinks they were definitely involved.
Yes,
you're talking we're talking Joseph Farrell's Nazi International. You call it whatever you want, but exactly, he's like, oop, he's in South America. We got to keep an eye on this. But I do want to say one thing though. What's really too bad about all these CIA guys we're talking about is it's just like with the FBI and the nonsense that goes on over there. You have seriously a huge majority of people working in these agencies that are doing a righteous mission, and they're the good righteous folks that aren't involved in these weird nefarious MK Ultra or the JFK stuff. You've got CIA people that are out there all over the world in dangerous places, going against true bad guys, and and when one unit does something weird or bad, it just kind of, unfortunately, the mud sprays on the whole
organization. It reflects on the entire organization, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not. I would just like people to keep that in mind. It's like when I hear the OSI stuff, Air Force OSI, like our full-time job was to lie to UFO fans. No, I mean, most agents are going after drug dealers on base, or people that have committed sexual assault or stealing, or if God forbid somebody's committed a murder, and the rest of the agents are going after foreign intelligence service spies and legitimate things. And sorry, my dog. So when we have an air conditioning issue and the windows have to be open, so. Hey,
no, it's absolutely true.
But you get my point.
Absolutely,
yes.
Yes.
People need to remember that when we're slamming CIA elements here, we're not slamming the whole organization. We're not slamming the whole FBI. We're not slamming the whole OSI. And I think most people realize that.
Oh,
I
yeah,
hope
you're
they
going
do.
to have those pockets. What's interesting about it is when you get an organization like that, there are people inside who probably like this program because they're looking at it and they're saying, yeah. This power system needs to be curbed. Absolutely. How do we curb it? There's no question about that. And what's interesting to me, too, is, Harry Truman, who created it, came out after the Kennedy assassination and said, no way. It's like, reform it or end it. And he came out with an editorial in the Washington Post, and they tried to get him to unscramble that somehow, but because he knew what was up. He put it out a month to the day after the assassination.
How old was Harry Truman when he died?
Oh, he was up there. I think he was about 81.
Okay. I was wondering because
no, that's an interesting thing that you said that, because in their conversation,
he didn't die till 72, and he wrote that in 63. But
right, yes. Well, what's interesting though is this is interesting because Truman set up. He's like, I created you. I know the Frankenstein monster inside and out, and he said I created it for overseas work, you know, and I created it to get intelligence to the president. Interesting thing about it is the very night that he put out this interesting editorial that he did for the Washington Post saying a month after the date of the Kennedy assassination, we need to curb the CIA. This is not what it was created for. Alan Dulles, the former CIA director who headed up the Warren Commission that Kennedy fired, came to visit him and said, you have to retract that no matter what. And Truman said, you can't scare me. I'm already old. So he knew the implied threat of the whole thing. So it's interesting you mentioned Truman's age there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Olivia, who is just overflowing with questions for tonight. And she's doing us all an incredible favor because, of course, as you know, the show, we weren't going to do a live show tonight. And so I ruined her plans, and here she is.
Okay, well, I'm going to start. There are a couple people in the chat, okay, who are concerned about divide and conquer, okay? So Conscious for Now says, why are you falling for the divide and conquer within the UFO field? There are too many important issues to be discussed. And
we're discussing them here tonight, actually.
This is one of those important issues.
This is it,
I take issue with, I've been hearing that for the last 24 hours from some folks, and it's like, you know, you're talking about, you want us to talk about the important issues. Well, this kind of thing that Corey Goode's trying to do could possibly stop us from talking about the important issues.
Exactly. No question about it. That's
sometimes, folks, we got to back up and deal with the practical, real world things in order to be able to handle these bigger issues.
No question. I 100% agree, Olivia.
And that these aren't about differences of beliefs. It's about bad actions.
Yeah, well, listen, ethics. Let's start with ethics. When somebody pilfers somebody else's material, right, that's unethical, for starters. I showed 5 examples. There were hundreds. I showed 5 examples in New Age Deep State Part 5. They're there. No one can deny them. They're undeniable. So let's start with that. Intellectual theft, 1. 2, threatening people. I was the subject of threats. Joe from the Carolinas was the subject of threats from these groups. We know Groovy Bean was a subject of threats from these groups. So threatening people to try to be silent. They try to threaten me with my channel, right? You know, we're going to do all this stuff to you, privatize and, you know, show your Illuminati love child and all that stuff. But, and what's interesting to me is, see, I've worked in newsrooms in the mainstream media. So I have the background. And the first thing is that you learn is that when somebody mentions they're going to sue you or say a legal thing, the first thing that you learn is they have something to hide. That's one. The second thing is when they say a threat, like they're going to somehow deplatform you or ruin your job or something like that, that means they really have something to hide. And so the more, when they came up with this little list of threats, and I was looking at the emails that they were sending to people trying to get them to stop coming forward, I was looking at myself and say, whatever is going on with these guys, they have a lot to hide. And, you know, that's where the series advanced. They were in 1 episode originally, and they made themselves the star of every episode. And here we are again, not because, you know, I have my own issues with them and their dishonesty, but I hadn't done a report on them in a while. But I have kept an eye on their activities for sure. But the reason I'm here is because of their actions trademarking, and the reason you're here, because I called you in for this, their actions of trademarking the Secret Space Program, which is a project I've worked on the research for, I've led conferences for, you've presented at conferences, Joseph Farrell's done the fundamental information on it, Richard Dolan's done the information, Catherine Austin Fitz. It will not stand. You will not get away with trademarking the Secret Space Program and limiting the Secret Space Program research community. You just invited the biggest legal backlash I think I've ever heard brewing in the alternative research community ever.
And they've hurt their any potential popularity that they want, because they've just wholesale pissed off legitimate, you know, researchers and a lot of the audience. You know, here's the thing: if you feel like you honestly you have material that other people are stepping on or using, I'll give you an example. How the rest of us do it is, there's a writer out there. I like him. I like his work. I found something in one of his books where he's talking about directly my work, and he had not mentioned me at all. Now, instead of me getting a lawyer and slapping a letter at him, I sent him an email and said, "Hey, man, in this chapter, what you're talking about there, let me fine tune it for you." And I originated that in 2013 or whatever. Here's the book. Here's the page number. Just basically, all I did was, hey, cite me. That's all I ask.
Right.
I'm not going to send a letter from a lawyer saying, "Oh, I'm going to get you." I just say, "Hey, man, and what did he do?" He goes, "Oh, shoot, okay," and he was totally cool about it. And that's how professionals and legitimate researchers. That's how we handle these things with each other.
Well, I also I absolutely hate the thoughtlessness of them putting this lawyer in the middle of all the crossfire too. That's the way that they operate.
Yeah.
We shove somebody else into their mess and who doesn't know about the shenanigans that they're always pulling and how many people can't stand the BS that they pull. And then they're like, "Here, you go deal with it." And then a bunch of people end up talking about the lawyer.
And in this case, the lawyer, I guess, is Teresa Yanera's sister, right?
Yes.
So we don't know to what degree the sister even knows about this community and what's going on. For all we know, Teresa went to her and said, "Hey, can you help us out with it?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay, this is what I can do." For all we know, that was the extent of her involvement and her knowledge of this.
Absolutely.
Now, like you said, she's going to be catching a bunch of flack from righteously so.
Hey,
from
listen,
people.
Yes, absolutely, because you get associated with that, junk, and these people are, the Roger Ramsar Richards, the Corey Good, David Wilcock, getting behind this thing and trying to trademark it. And then that whole crew saying it's a great idea. The stuff has been around. This guy crawled out of Gaia TV 2015, as I pointed out in the beginning of the program, out of a very unstable situation. I also want to know if Gaia had vetted the fact that he had a restraining order on him a year before he showed up in their series. I mean, that's kind of serious. Maybe they should have tipped people off if this guy had.
I would like to think that the answer is it's an oops, and that they didn't know that when they should have, rather than think that Gaia would know it and still push the guy. But you never know. I mean, I don't work there. I don't, I've only been there once.
And I want to say this too, in the thing about Corey's kids also, because Corey's kids, you have to remember that's a marketing program. They don't care about the people involved. Just like Gaia switched out their galactic ambassador and put this new guy in, who has a bigger slay record of the ETs, right? He's killed more ETs than the guy before him.
Wait, Jason Rice has killed ETs?
He is, yeah. That's
more than Emery Smith?
He's got more. More kills.
If he killed one, he's killed more than Emery Smith. I you know what? And I'm glad Jason put this letter out there.
Yes.
But look, you guys know how my opinion of all these, I'm an insider secret space program guy, and I think it's all BS until they prove otherwise.
No, that's legitimate. I think that there can be people who come forward, as we've seen, and do whistleblower testimonies, and to the extent that you can corroborate their background, you take them seriously. This is a page out of Richard Dolan's thing, because he really has talked about the value and the balance of a real whistleblower and what you can get from them by sifting through the background. It takes time versus just some guy flying out there and saying, "I did 3,000 autopsies on ET bodies."
Yeah, a whistleblower in in government agencies is a very particular. It has a definition, and as you laid out, there's a particular process to actually to back up and make this whole thing happen with a legitimate whistleblower.
Well, absolutely.
These guys are doing is not that process.
No question. And look, let's look at a legitimate whistleblower for a minute, Gary McKinnon.
Okay. Yeah.
Gary McKinnon was brought up at a press conference between Prime Minister Cameron and Barack Obama in the UK because the US wanted him that bad. Mm-hmm. That's what they do with whistleblowers. They try to get them really bad into a situation where they can grab them, interrogate them for what they know, and then put them in prison, as we saw, was the case with Chelsea Manning. Mm-hmm. So that's what they do. you lounging around in a studio at Gaia TV with a latte, it's not going to happen. It's somebody's fantasy. I'm telling you, it's an old white guy's fantasy. These old white guys got together at Gaia and they cooked up this thing and they rolled these guys through this program.
Now, and I think the difference between McKinnon and Manning was McKinnon was not an insider employee with any. He was a hacker, right?
Absolutely, but the information that he got into, which is how we got into the off-world officers.
Yeah,
list,
he got into the real systems and everything. But Manning, was active duty military, had signed on that line, had taken that oath, and was trusted personnel. That's why Chelsea Manning got in trouble.
Able to grab him,
because it was the trusted personnel violating very specifically a legal agreement and an oath.
Interesting, true. But if we can go into that also, which is the stuff that he put out there represented, violations and war crimes. So,
however, there is an apparatus in place, and that's called the IG. And believe me, the IG guys don't care if they piss off a general or a politician. As it all played out,
Chelsea
Manning could have gone to the IG.
Well, as it all played out, he went to
WikiLeaks,
and this is the nature of the situation we got. I do think what's important about all this consideration is that the secret space program is a very important piece of the national security state.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very important piece of the missing trillions research. It's a very important piece of the UFO file.
Right.
So all of those things concerned, the way to get us off the trail with the bozo factor is, it's pretty good because they get to distract and do all these crazy things and use people and put out Corey's kids or whatever it happens to be. In the meantime, the real message gets lost and the real research gets lost. That's the point. And now, going a little bit further, they're trying to block any real exposition and exchange around the secret space program. That's why it won't stand. That's why it can't be something where you just look at it and you say, oh, the crazy circus is going on over there, which you do all the time when you're in alternative research, just like when you're in politics.
Yeah. It's it's like I said a while back, about a half hour or so ago. I think we're dealing with Corey Goode and we're dealing with the TTSA guys because first and foremost tip of the spear is Catherine Austin Fitts talking about that money. Those
I absolutely agree with you. Money.
That puts secret space program red hot in the center of the radar. The research that is being done. But when you had not just she's at the tip of the spear on that stage, but you have Richard Dolan, there that first year in 2014, you have McCandless, you have Schratt, you have Joseph Farrell, you have Brandenburg, you have LaViolette, you have me in 2015. By 2015, they realized, oh crap, we got to do something.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put us on an ego trip, but folks, these are the facts. You really look at what was being done by those researchers who I said earlier, every one of those people I named are superior to me. When you look at what they were doing up to 2014 and 2015, well before Corey Goode ever, came along, they are the reason why I think these ops were pushed the way they were. I mean, come on, they pushed Corey Goode directly on to 2015, tried to, and then TTSA comes along. If you want to know, if you want to get close to the truth of secret space program research, you go back and look at those videos all on YouTube. 2014 in San Mateo, 2015 in Bastrop, Texas. You watch all of them, even mine. But you watch all those other people I named, and there is your most substantial secret space program research up till then.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. That is the material that we should be referring back to when we're speaking about secret space program research, not the phony autopsies, not the phony galactic ambassadors getting messages and all that. It's really they've really rolled it out. Okay, Miss Olivia, we kept you
so
waiting.
Joseph Farrell would like to have Walter talk about the spooks at the 2014 conference.
Yes, so we are talking about that openly now. Yes, I went to San Mateo in 2014. I went there with Joseph and with Chuck McCorkle, who's been kind of a organizer of things.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we drove up from Victorville, and my reason for being there was to be kind of a security advisor type for Joseph and things in general. There was a particular security issue. I won't go into the details on that because it involves an individual who was there. But as a peripheral thing that happened were these, there were a couple of guys at the event, that we wondered about, standing in the back, that kind of thing. But at the hotel, if you recall, were you there in 2014? You were, right, Daniel?
2015.
2015. Well, in 2014, where we were staying, there were these very interesting characters who the juxtaposition of their presence, happened to be when we were there, and just their behavior just kind of smelled funny. It's that. And to try to explain this to folks that have never worked in that world, from the outside in, you go, well, that could be anybody. That could be really vague. But when you've done this kind of thing, when you know what to look for, it looked like very much like what we suspected it was. And that was people who were there to just kind of take an assessment, see who these speakers were, see what they were saying during the day, but also to observe their interactions with each other at night. And why would you do that? Well, you want to see who's the loud, rambunctious one. You want to see who's the withdrawn, quiet one. You want to see who the big drinking partier is. You want to see the one who might, be hiding stuff behind closed doors. You're doing kind of general assessment type stuff. And they easily could have been doing this from their position of being other people staying at the same lodging. Wow. So, in my opinion, there were some funny characters in 2014 at San Mateo.
No question. I remember Chris Carter is a part of the Secret Space Program audience, and he used the term in the X-Files reboot. He was right on top of it. So
I wonder if he got Corey Good's permission to...
Exactly. We have to alert Chris that Corey's got the trademark. Okay, Olivia.
Brittany and Carrie ask, is there anything legally that we can do to stop Corey from copywriting these terms? Talking about is important, but what else can be done?
Is that Cosmic Garden?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Cosmic Garden. It's nice to hear from you. The most important thing is awareness around this, first of all. Being aware that there's a group that's been in these circles and creating these types of controversies. And now that they're stepping forward openly to try to shut down the secret space program by trademarking the name, which is ridiculous because they just came out in 2015 and the manager showed up on the scene in 2016. He was running an export-import business on the West Coast, and suddenly he's interested in UFOs out of nowhere. Maybe, let's have him come out and talk about where his interest in UFOs came from out of the blue and why he suddenly became the bankroll stash for Corey Goode and his stuff. Those are the types of things, because if you're feeding this stuff out to people and you're saying, hey, it's a revolution, baby, it's a disclosure revolution, it seems to me it's more of a cult of disclosure. And my guess is it's a marketing cult. And that means that they've studied the entire field very well, and they figured out those points to put forward. And I think that a lot of the intel support around groups like the Corey Goode thing comes from the outside looking in and saying, this thing is good. It's a good distraction. Let's help push that as they're doing the marketing cult thing. So in terms of what we can do, anywhere, I think what I'm doing right now is a hashtag. And I think this is important for everyone to do to start with. And there's a couple actually, but the one that I like is no SSPTM. That's important because they should not and cannot be allowed to trademark the secret space program, because that completely eliminates and creates strictures on an area of research in the alternative research community. It's a freedom of speech issue. It's a freedom of assembly issue. It's getting in there. And what they're trying to do is tie people up. Tie them up, say, oh, here's your legal letter. Now you're thinking about court stuff. make other people avoid it. Maybe you'll get important people who are doing it to avoid it. Maybe we can shut down Fitz from looking into this because it's just too much of a hassle, and therefore let's move around. It's not going to happen.
Well, what's interesting, why are they using these dark cabal tactics? That's exactly, throwing these legal letters around, and
Yes.
isn't this what their dark cabal does?
That's
And,
right. The cabal is
really one thing that folks can do is anytime you hear them say something that you've heard before elsewhere, go to the source, identify, where you heard it before, the page of their book or what video that predates Corey Goode, et cetera's use of this, and note that and inform people, inform that author, inform that researcher, let them know every time you see this happening. And, if you're inclined to, when it's phone-in time over at, Jimmy the Knucklehead show, call him and call him out on this. Say, how can you give your moral support to this kind of, potential plagiarism and silencing, and just spell it out for him and call him out on it.
Yes.
Make him do his Jimmy Church tap dance that I heard him do this summer, and put the heat back on them.
Yeah.
For doing this kind of thing. Always do it legally and always do it safely.
Yeah.
And be righteous about it. Be right. If you're going to do it, be right.
Absolutely. No, it's polite, it's professional, and it's to the point. And there's no mistaking it at all. Okay, Miss Olivia.
Okay, so No War But the Class War says, Daniel said he wanted to comment on Gonzalez, who was interviewed by Sala, but I think you kind of sidestepped that a little.
Well, it's one of those things to get into, but I will say that basically, the stories that came forward around that were that they had decided to create some kind of a composite character named Gonzalez, and that Sala in his book put the name out before they could get a handle on it, and they were like, oops, so these weird characters that they create, like Sigmund and all that stuff. I mean, what's interesting about them, I would say, is this, that the fact that they want to do comic books, the fact that they want to do the fantasy stuff, the fact that they imitate Star Trek to such a degree, just go into the fantasy realm. You're there, you're right there. Keep on going. This idea.
Call it what it is, entertainment.
Exactly. A marketing cult coming in and sizing up and saying, nope, we can sell it better if they think it's real. That's the problem. It's not the idea that these people can't come up with good ideas or comic books. Go for it. But don't pretend, the gig is up. Let's face it. No one with a brain thinks that you're a galactic ambassador. It's over. So, the only thing you're doing is creating a lot of legal hassles. That stuff's going to come back on you because you've got a pretty crazy past there, Corey Goode. Let's get real. Okay. I've seen it up close. And, it's not pretty stuff, and you don't want all that junk coming up. So take a real good look at that. Take a look at your own actions. I will say this in relation to that whole group, which is there seems to be this, we're going to go in, and anyone who's competing with us, which is a very Rockefeller style tactic, we're going to try to take them down, take down their channel. They're talking about the secret space program. Send this guy a letter. He can't do it. Jason Rice took my job. I'll tell you what, he gets a legal letter. It's a weird competition thing. And this is also strange because we can see that this is what Catherine Austin Fitz calls the Midianite thing, that these people can turn at each other, that on a dime, when they decide, when Gaia decides, this Wilcock guy is past his prime. We've had enough of those stories. Let's get some other people doing this stuff. He turns on them and he says, you're the devil. You're a Luciferian, after basically getting paid by them for 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's so ridiculously hypocritical. Yeah. So I think we get a little snapshot of who we're dealing with there. Remember this too, and I want to say this about Wilcock. I never tire of emphasizing this story. Wilcock came forward because this guy had a gimmick in mind. The guy's name is Wynn-Free, W-Y-N-N Free. And the gimmick was simple. The gimmick was, I'm going to find a guy who looks like Edgar Casey and pretend that he had his past life. He was Casey's past life. And he decided to do it with Wilcock, and they did all this stuff. And then later, what did Wynn-Free do? He tried to do it with St. Catherine and his friend and do the same little picture stuff. It was a gimmick. And, there are a lot of writers who use gimmicks, and there are guys out there who just have fun with it. It's kind of like a what if situation. You know, that's where Wilcock comes from. This is the kind of like grasping, unethical BS that this guy was founded in. And then there's the weird, like, I'm going to be Michael Jackson famous. I mean, how does this guy look at himself in the mirror and take himself seriously? This is ridiculous. And no, you're not going to be Michael Jackson famous. You know, if anything, I'm going to make you famous for trying to help trademark the secret space program. How do you like that? That's going to be a whole different level of fame for you, buddy.
Well, you almost want to say, you know, when you look at the big picture, do you really want to be Michael Jackson famous? Because that's kind of checkered, you know. You know, here's what you were saying a minute ago, just real quick. People say, well, you know, here you are ragging on Corey Goode for peddling fantasy. Is, you know, what about you, Bosley? What about the stuff you say? Well, what I say is I identify when I'm speculating. In everything, I say, this is what I think, or what if, or here's a speculation. Joseph Farrell identifies when he's speculating.
He writes footnotes. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
In college, right? What do you learn? What's the first thing that you learn when you're doing a major paper? You have to cite your sources, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you don't get past that level, like basically your work gets thrown out, because if you can't cite a source, it doesn't go in. But somehow in the alternative research field, when they're pushing a narrative or a marketing op, or a marketing cult or CIA thing, they don't need any explanation. They don't need any.
Well, because their people are peddling crap. They're saying things that are just patently unprovable because they're not true.
Well, what's amazing is the actual truth is so fascinating.
Yes,
it's so interesting.
Exactly.
Look at the stuff that you've been covering. Look at the X series, 30 episodes, bringing together the mystery schools, the deep state. There's a whole range of things. You want the lost continent of Atlantis? You want, you know, Antarctica? The real stuff is there. This really like horrible version, comic book version that's, I'm telling you, it's going to be looked at as the lowest moment. It's going to be the last 5 years or so, and they're going to look at that and say, oh, yeah, that was Corey Goode. Do you remember that horrible thing?
Yeah. Well,
it's try to sue everybody to keep the term before he went down. You know, I mean,
it's the era. It's the era of the adrenaline drip. 9/11 started it. It got everybody in this state of and everybody, and then the politics continued it. Look how and I'm not going into the details, but look how the political discussion has everybody's wired all the time, and they just got to keep having the adrenaline injected in. And so the stuff that Wilcock and Goode and all these other fantasists put out there, that's the adrenaline that keeps them going. The crap that the TTSA people, new paradigm, man, the shift is coming. There's going to be revelations. It's coming. It's you know, just like the disclosure weenies. I mean, oh my God, the disclosure fanatics. It's right around the corner. George W. Bush is the disclosure president.
Yeah, right.
Obama's the disclosure. Oops.
Yeah.
You know, none of them are ever the disclosure president, but it's everybody's on this adrenaline. Well, not everybody. Too many people are on the adrenaline drip in our community, and that's all they want. They just want to be it's just like the people that are just too constantly with the Q stuff. There, you know, it's 24/7. Yeah, but Q said this and Q said that, or Q said this 6 months ago.
What's interesting is
they want to be high all the time.
The extent to which the Wilcock, Goode, all that stuff is moving over into Q and trying to co-opt it too. That's weird. It's like, you know, I gotta tell you something, boys. You know, Christian conservative Trump supporters that are into Q material are not going to like you and your bizarre blue chickens. It's not going to be a man. I mean, give me a break. All right, Miss Olivia, sorry, you're in the picture.
Okay, so Michael Wisdom wants to know, could they actually sue you if SSP is trademarked, and would it actually silence us?
Yes, 100%. That's the threat, you see. I mean, I have incredibly robust...
If they get it.
Yeah. I have robust legal resources, and I will not ever allow them to silence what I'm doing. However, they can roll right down the line, make it expensive, make it time consuming. You know, they can do that, and they can take channels down. Let me tell you, the last ping on my channel to take it down is October 9th. Okay. Who do you think's doing that? Well, who's putting out a movie October 31st? Let's get real. Okay. Now these guys have made plays for my channels, and I have all kinds of history with them. That's not really the point. The point is this: when they move into this, Michael Rice, Joe from the Carolinas does all of his secret space program work. These people criticizing the cult, basically, they get silenced. That's what's behind it. It's a marketing move, but it takes care of all the critics too. It's very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous, and it violates free speech, and it's not going to stand. Okay, Miss Olivia.
Okay, Joe from the Carolinas. Speaking to Walter's point, isn't it interesting that every president is called disclosure president?
Yeah.
Your analysis?
This should be good.
I was just going to say, if Joseph Farrell's still listening, we all know that it all started with Millard Fillmore. He was the disclosure president, the first one. Yeah, it's just, you go ahead with your analysis. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Walter, I have to say, I want you to take this one.
Oh, look, my view of disclosure in general is it has become, over the years, those who were wanting to be disclosed, they, in my opinion, are controlling their disclosure entirely. It's not going to be any president. It sure as heck is not going to be some activist star of the UFO community stomping his feet with all his fanatics, demanding disclosure. The people have a right to know. Look, these things have been coming here. These entities, these beings, I think a lot of them are human beings just like us, have been coming here for thousands of years, okay? When they decide they want to be disclosed to us in that massive way, they will do it, okay? And all the, whatever the term is, the politicking, the exopolitics, whatever it is, all this demanding disclosure is a childish waste of time if you think that's going to get disclosure.
I like that.
And so there's going to be no, the disclosure president is going to be the president who's in office when they decide to disclose themselves and they say, hey, lucky you get to go on with the announcement. But it's not going to have anything to do with the efforts of people demanding disclosure. Hate to tell you that.
Absolutely agree. Miss Olivia.
Marco Andre Silva, any comments on Lavenda's apologizing of TTSA?
That's pretty interesting. I've always felt that Lavenda was caught in a weird situation there because writers like to write. And I don't hold it against Lavenda that he was associated with him, but I think he should get the hell out of there. I don't know if you think.
Yeah, he was hired to write a book, and he
Yeah.
did that. You know,
I think
no
there's a lot
harm,
of
no foul
people-
there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who need to get the hell out of there. I think the Corey's kids need to get the hell out of there. You know,
There's a lot of
pound hashtag get the hell out of there.
Okay, so for the gentle New Agers in the audience who are uncomfortable with conflict and want unity in the community, and I feel them because that is where my heart is. Do you have any? I know what I'd like to say is that unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through periods of conflict, which are uncomfortable.
Let me show you something. I'm so glad you said unity in the community.
Mhm.
All right, let's take a good look
Oh,
at Jim Jones. Okay.
Mhm.
And let's not forget the Kool-Aid over here. Jim Jones, what was the name of Jim Jones' church? It was called the Unity Community Church. You get some idea of how dangerous cults are? I mean, I would prefer to have people who disagree working honestly, at odds with each other, debating things, have a robust situation, seeing the real picture, which, by the way, in order to look at things like the deep state and all the rest of it, you're going to have to deal with a lot of fracturing the picture. So therefore, you're always going to have disagreements. I think the idea of unity is way overhyped. I don't want to be part of a Borg. You know, I don't want to be part of that kind of mindset. I think the unity comes from each person having the right ideal and being accepting of other ideas. So if the ideal is bringing the truth forward on the secret space program, then somebody coming in and saying, I'm going to trademark that so I can sue you if you do anything about it, even though I just came out of the blue. And by the way, I'm backed by some weird import-export guy who just showed up in 2016. Questions going to be answered. They need to be answered. And this idea that, you know, there's some community thing going on and that therefore anything that you say against, you know, this weird bizarro thing that just showed up 3 years ago is supposed to be breaking some unity in the community. There's your answer. All right.
Yeah.
Take a good long look. And then the Corey's kids, take a good long look. Here's my suggestion for the Corey's kids. Hashtag get the hell out of there.
Unity is something, it should be motivated and driven by knowing when to work together. But you also need to know when it's time to step back. Isn't there an old apocryphal biblical story about the war in heaven when Lucifer and his army were saying, come on, we're going to turn against heaven and all this stuff? And wasn't there the story of the one angel who looks at them and says, you guys are crazy and you're wrong and you're going down, and I don't care what you say to me, come on, be part of the team. I'm sure Lucifer and his buddies were using the unity, go along to get along, the singularity, the hive think argument on this one particular angel. And the lesson we're supposed to take from that apocryphal tale is knowing when to stand up against the crowd, no matter what they're saying. It doesn't mean your side's going to win, but you just got to know when to be unified and when not to be.
What I learned about this cult as I studied it, the Sphere of Being Alliance Blue Chicken cult of Corey Goode and Roger Ramser, is that, who calls himself Roger Richards now, basically anyone in their machine who didn't agree with them and who came forward to basically talk about what they didn't agree with, they got the threats of, we can say you're with the cabal. If you don't shut up, we'll say you're with the cabal. We'll say you're with the Illuminati. It's going to be very uncomfortable for you. How about we settle that between... I've seen the emails, reams and reams of emails. Some of them are public. So it's not like it's a big secret. So what's that? What kind of love and light is that?
And it worked. It worked.
Oh, well,
being threatened to be identified with the Illuminati.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Well, this was their weird tagline, and they did it. They did it with me, which was the most bizarre thing. They were like, "We'll reveal you as an Illuminati agent."
See, I would laugh and I'd say, "Hey, buddy, I was already a badge-carrying AFOSI agent. It doesn't get more evil than that with this crowd." It's like Sam Kinison. When he talked about, he was divorced. After his divorce, he had this dream where he died on the operating table or something. Yeah. And, he goes down into hell and the demons are all, and he's just looking at him and they're like, and the demons stop and they go, devil says, what, we're doing our best. How come this isn't affecting you? And he says, hey man, I've been married. and the devil says, oh, you want a job? So, it's the threats of, oh, we'll tell people you're a cabal. I think you and I and others have laughed about proudly. I envy you. You were actually named. I was just insinuated.
Yeah, I know. I want to get you up from insinuated to named.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay, you're up.
Okay, a
Miss
cult
Olivia.
fan would like to know your advice for spiritual strength.
Oh, it's not nice. Well, look, I'm a reporter. That's all I am. I'm a dark journalist. And when I see dark situations that aren't getting unraveled, it seems like I have a kind of a knack for it. And so that's where I'm coming from. In terms of spiritual strength, I can tell you where I draw spiritual strength is there's something fundamentally important about protecting the truth and about respecting other people's truths. So it seems to me that there's something fundamental about the ability for people to share their ideas and share their truths. And when I see that shut down, somehow when I was doing the New Age Deep State, I almost became like the reporter or the guy who was leading the union against the corporation. And that's really how I see myself in all of these situations, which is I'm trying to give people that information and try to protect their ability to speak out. And let me tell you, in this little battle with the marketing cult, there was incredible pressure, and I mean incredible pressure placed on people who were coming forward to me to give me information relating to the shenanigans behind the scenes of the marketing cult of Corey Goode and Roger Richards Ramser Gold. So, those are the people I admire because, I've been through the news business and I've been through corporate America. I understand these things, but the tactics that they were using on these people, scare tactics for people who were in fragile positions, mostly women, predominantly women, about 98% women, and very often in vulnerable positions. Wow. I mean, sometimes your respect level can drop for people, but there's another place where you actually go when you look at them and you say, this is despicable stuff. So as a reporter, you get used to that. But wow, I was really right now I'm living it. When I saw them slap this on this guy Rice, who basically is just saying the same thing that they did. They're basically saying you can't be in the space because it's going to run into our revenue stream and our plans, and they're trying to scare him. It's not going to stand. Sorry, you made another screwball.
I think what we need to start doing is pay attention to who they go after and who they don't. Who they don't tells you who they won't mess with, who they're afraid of.
Yes.
Who might worry them.
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic. Walter, on the beam. Okay, Miss Olivia.
Okay, Esoteric 369 Wall would like to know about your opinions on Robert David Steele in the context being discussed.
Isn't that interesting? I have a picture here of Robert David Steele with Ben Fulford. Ben Fulford is the one who's been spreading the cabal. Arrests are coming. And don't worry, the Nazis are good now. They've made a deal, and they're going to come out. And so Nazis are good and all that stuff. And Fulford, his number one fan who parrots him is this guy, right? Our good friend, David Wilcock. I mean, and that's what drives the cabal arrest conversations. In the meantime, real issues get missed. Steele is this guy who shows up, and he talks about, there's a secret space program for the Navy and for the Air Force and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you have all that information, come on, spit it out. You're an ex-CIA guy. How about you want to put it on the table? Good. Otherwise, I really don't have a whole lot of patience for him. And that's where I stand on that. Okay, Olivia.
Okay.
Olivia's getting the good ones tonight. Before we go any
Mhm.
further, I'm sorry. You're watching Dark Journalist. I'm here with author Walter Bosley, who is killing it tonight. I want to say this about Bosley, although he's very modest about his work. The Empire of the Wheel series of books and his other work also, but I always tune in on that Empire of the Wheel series and his presentation at the Secret Space Conference, Austin 2015, is fascinating stuff and move the needle forward, I think, dramatically in the conversation forward. So I highly recommend his work, and I think that if you're looking for good material and if you're looking to go really deep with a real investigator, look into Walter's work because it's absolutely fascinating. So with that, I will go to Miss Olivia's next question.
Okay, Brandon Jimenez says, MUFON has been sold to Luis Elizondo. In the past month, he was in Irvine finalizing everything. Did you know that?
Well, this is you're going to have to substantiate.
Yeah.
MUFON is pretty big, and if Elizondo bought it, I'm pretty sure we'd know about it. However, I want to know where you heard that, and I'm happy to follow up on it. You can email me at info@darkjournalist.com, and I read all those, and I dialogue on the ones that I think are timely. Fantastic. But thanks for letting me know. Okay, you're up.
Okay, NR. Ask if Walter knew Emery Smith while he was Stephen Greer's bodyguard, and what do you think of Stephen Greer?
No, I didn't know Emery Smith at all. I've never met him. I think what he says is a load of crap. I don't believe anything that comes out of this guy's mouth. I think he lies about his past, and again, until he proves otherwise, it's all lies, all of it.
Oh my God,
he's a con man.
Straight up.
Greer. I think he's sincere. I think he's I don't think he's always right. I don't find myself agreeing with a lot of the stuff, but I think he's a sincere guy.
No, I agree. I would say this about Greer, and you can't take it away from him. The 2001 disclosure press conferences,
yeah,
where he assembled those people. I mean, that's a great asset to everyone for information. So he was able to do that regardless of what else anyone would say about him, or if he takes himself too seriously or whatever. The fact is, on the ground, when you do something like that powerful, then it causes a ripple. So he caused that ripple there.
Yeah, I just disagree with some of his conclusions. To me, he's not like a flim-flam man like these other guys can be.
No, I agree. I 100% agree with that.
Emery Smith is. He's a knucklehead.
Okay, you're up next.
Okay. So Bo Krills wants to hear the full Antarctica whole story in detail.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to have then, Walter, we're going to have him come back when we're not dealing with this topic. And we were planning that anyway because the book about your dad, the title escapes me right now, but I want to talk.
Shimmering Light.
Shimmering Light, yes.
Yeah.
That we're going to have to go deep on. So we will have you back and we'll talk about Antarctica.
Okay.
Keep rolling.
Okay. Do you guys want to discuss Laura Eisenhower at all?
No. I'm sure she does her best, and she does her best.
She does it all on her own. You just listen to her, and that covers it.
Laura, that's somebody who I think is again around the wrong people. But
Yeah.
keep rolling.
Okay, so you've kind of discussed this, but there are two interesting comments back to back. Philip Gillenwater says, you have to admit, though, even if good is full of crap, there has been a consciousness shift
No.
with people who have woken up a little
No.
to an SSP existence because of good. Sorry, but true.
No.
Sorry, but they've been woken up to a load of crap that has misled them and
Yes.
steered them off a legitimate path
Yeah.
to where they won't pay attention to the real stuff because it's not exciting enough. So sorry, but that don't fly.
It's actually it's a poison pill, actually. That's
Yeah.
what it's called. And the dog agrees.
Yes.
in this case.
Hey, Tiki, stop that.
Tiki is in deep agreement.
Tiki.
Now, Miss Olivia, we only have time for 2 more questions, so choose them carefully. And then I'm going to read a little roll call list here of people who are doing a great job on reporting on this. Okay, keep rolling.
Okay, Joe from the Carolinas again. Does Walter think it's time for real SSP researchers to speak out?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, why? And what would that look like?
Amen. Amen, Joe from the Carolinas.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I have friends. You guys know who my friends are. Some of them are big in the do not engage thing. I understand where that's coming from and where that originated and where, what they primarily aimed that at. Others just believe and they don't want to get involved in stuff. But what I would say to them is, guys, this is going to affect what you do. I was telling Joseph Farrell earlier, it'd be like if somebody says, oh, I'm going to trademark the phrase Giza Death Star. What would that do to him? So I know the easier path is the one of least resistance and, don't get involved, do not engage. But you know what? That's not practical. Sometimes you got to stand up and engage. It's just, you do. And this is one of those times where we all have to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're doing here right now. And Walter, you did a great job on that tonight, laying out what's actually at stake and who we're actually dealing with when we talk about Intel. It's not this, let's say, nebulous concept when it comes to you and your background. You understand it very well. But yes, thanks for the question. Let's keep rolling.
Okay, so Najat Madri, why did this secret space conference stop? There hasn't been one in a couple of years. It's actually been 3 years.
Well, there's a few reasons for that. I mean, what happened actually with that conference was that afterwards, the Global BEM guys, Jerome and Robert, they got involved with another alternative energy conference, and that led them down a different path, and they got kind of rolled into this other thing. But it's true, the apparatus for a conference culture developed around real themes where people aren't being harvested, where people's ideas are respected, is overdue and is very important. And with my own work so deep on the X series and the work that I'm doing, assembling a conference hasn't been something that's really been on my mind. But I'll tell you, here's who I would elect for the greatest conference in the world: Walter Bosley, Catherine Austin Fitts, Richard Dolan, and Joseph Farrell, for starters. Unbelievable.
Who would not go to that conference?
Unbelievable combination of people. And I could host it all right here in Boston at one of the most fantastic facilities in town. So that's where my real answer on that. But I totally agree with you, Najat. That's highly, highly overdue, and we can see what happens in the void. We hear the clucking of chickens in the distance. Okay.
So, last question.
Last question.
Well, Titan Blood wants to know who actually coined the phrase "blue chickens."
That's a good one. Cliff High really made it popular. He put it on the radar. I'm not sure if he created it, but damn, he really put it on the radar.
I think Joe from the Carolinas carried the ball real far downfield once it came out.
But listen, Olivia actually found the ultimate blue chicken mascot, and really, he's got a thing to say. He's coming forward.
Get ready.
He has definitely things to speak. So we're looking for you, blue chickens. We got your number. And I did hear that the original name of the movie was going to be I Blue Chicken. So you missed out big time. And with that, I'm going to close the question and answer. But I am going to say this. I'm going to read off some people here. And Walter, you can stay with us so I can say goodbye to you properly. I did want to mention some of these people doing a great job. First of all, behind the scenes, Jesse Singer just doing incredible work. And this is, I want to say this about Jesse is, he did UFO Not Radio for a good while, and he's done incredible things in this arena, and he really moves around the board. But my God, this guy is really tuned in, and he understands the space very well. Thank you, Jesse, for all your contributions around it. Joe from the Carolinas, we rang off. Cliff High, I do want to put it on the map. Catherine Austin Fitz really bringing it up and staying with it. Talk about courage around all this. Just fantastic. Richard Dolan, always incredibly, professional and always incredibly courteous about it. But certainly we know where he stands on it. And we have so many other people. There's a guy, I mentioned the guy, CW Chanter, who's doing this nightly series, just laying out, he's doing it. He's got his own channel. He's just laying it out. He's getting in there and he got the history. And I also want to mention Groovy Bean, who came forward and helped really when all that was going on. And, she did a tremendous job and really took incredible flack. So she's a little unspoken hero. When I was putting together the New Age Deep State, I was definitely aware of her situation. And, she did a terrific job. So I want to thank her. And, there's incredible people out there. I'm going to say one of the most amazing things that I recall is Gigi Young. And, Gigi Young, when all this was going on, and people who were doing work in that arena, basically dealing with the psychic intuitive side of things, might have really had a hard time speaking out against the Corey Good New Age thing and all that, but not Gigi. Gigi instantly came right on board and said there's something wrong going on here. And wow, what an amazing difference in quality from the type of work that somebody like Gigi brings forward versus the, crazy Gaia routine. So these are the people. I mean, we have incredible people. Alexandra Bruce at Forbidden Knowledge TV, putting forward incredible work that's, so much better and so much refined that's out there. Listen, Alexandra went to Brown University. The quality of her intellect working in alternative space. This is the type of thing that we need. We need the smart people. We need that brain trust, that intelligentsia. Like you, Walter.
Well, I consider myself I like to be around people that are, that classic thing, be around people that are smarter than you and better than you at what it is you're all doing. And I think when I'm with that crowd, that's exactly what I'm doing. So it helps me be better, and I'm glad to be part of it, to be considered, with those guys, that you've just named, all of them. That's something to be proud of. If you're going to take yourself seriously, which I try to, with humor, of course, but I try to take the work seriously. And they definitely, all those people you named, they definitely are the ones who laid the serious foundation for what we're talking about here. Not Wilcock, not Good, not Smith, not any of them. If anything, they've appropriated it from others.
There's no question. And, there's more out there. There's always people coming in and out dealing with these things. And we always appreciate it. Of course, Bill Ryan coming forward and giving me the heads up, basically, about the Corey Goode before the Gaia thing helped tremendously. And I did a 3-part episode with him. It's still up on the channel. I highly recommend it. Foundational features are in there about how the marketing cult got started. And like I said, in traditional journalism, you always look at the business manager. Look at this guy's business manager closely. What is he up to? That's the kind of investigative reporting that we need in this community. And I would say in the alternative research community generally, always watch out for people who say, oh, don't stir the pot or keep unity in the community. I showed the Jim Jones example earlier. It's real, and at the same time, it's fascinating if you really look at it. My last major report on Goode in the New Age Deep State was it was July 2017. So it is the trademark issue. It's them aggressively moving into that legal space, going after this other whistleblower guy who should be on the same level, should be able to have his free speech and all the rest of it. Look, let's look at that and let's really put it out there, because when you get right down to it, when people make moves like that, you have two choices, and it's kind of like Hitler marching into the Rhine. I'm sorry for the exaggerated example, but it's true. When they don't get stopped at the pass, they keep going. And, when you draw the boundary, like in any personal relationship, then you know where you stand and they know where you stand. So now I know where I stand and they know where I stand. And that's important. And by the way, the SSP trademark will not stand.
I go ahead.
No, it's you.
I just wanted to throw in there about, I too had, a couple of folks say, hey, just let this thing go. You're talking about it too much. And similar to you, it's been a year that I've said little to zero about Corey Goode. Yeah. And it is this trademark thing. It's a true issue. It is alarming. It's serious. It needs to be dealt with. And sometimes people forget because we both have YouTube channels. Yours is much more popular than mine. But because we're out there and our videos are there, a lot of times people don't look at the dates of when these things are posted. They get on there, they're new to your channel. They look at, they'll look at all my videos where I'm ragging on the blue chicken, blah, 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 blah. And they don't see that most of that's like a year ago. They think that I just did all this week and I'm just crazy, I'm obsessed. And I just want to point that out. Take a look at when we guys like us are posting these things and reporting these things, because it's not an obsession. It's a legitimate issue tonight.
No, I 100% agree. And just to break all the seriousness, I'm going to do my impression of David Wilcock suddenly getting intel that he needed to make sure that trademark didn't go through. Well, they told me from very high sources that I needed to take the trademark off, and Corey has agreed, so no more trademark wars. Thank you, David. Listen, by the way, these guys are welcome to come on my show to discuss this anytime. Corey Goode, Roger Ramser, David Wilcock. Open invitation to you. Open invitation to debate you. I will debate you. I will show that, in my opinion, with my research, you're a marketing cult. You can debate me and say, no, we're not a marketing cult, and here's why. But on the trademark issue, I'll face against you. That's pretty good odds for you guys, 2 against 1. And I have an idea about this. Why don't we say we'll do moderators, okay? On your side, you can have Teresa Llaneros as part of the group, that you guys are doing that. Unfortunately, I wish you'd get out of there. And on our side, we'll have Joe from the Carolinas. He'll moderate our side. And it'll be me versus Goode and Ramser. I'll debate you, and I will show that you're a marketing cult. So it's up to you guys now. How do you like that? I'm there. You name it. You name the Zoom session and the time. Those are the 2 moderators. I just named them. I'm there. So there's your challenge, and that's the beginning of your secret space program trademark challenge. Anytime. And with that, Miss Olivia,
So that is the SSPTM Rumble.
oh, I don't want to call it a rumble. It's a debate. It's a debate.
Okay.
And, look, if you think that after all of this, you have a leg to stand on going after people with legal letters, then I want to hear about it. I believe that it's the act of a marketing cult and that you don't have a leg to stand on because you only rolled into the scene in the middle of 2015. And then the other guy in 2016, no one even knows anything about him. At least Corey Good had the Project Avalon background. Who's this guy? Don't know anything about him. 2016, suddenly you're fascinated with Full Disclosure Now. Shouldn't we know more about your business and what you do? Wilcock, you're another one. I mean, maybe you should talk to these guys and tell them that trademarking the secret space program is a lousy idea. Highly recommend it. Thank you, everyone. What an incredible crowd and incredible questions. And I do expect a response to that debate challenge, by the way. And I think you guys should take, if you're confident in your position, you should take me up on it. And like I said, I'll be there, and I've suggested the moderators. I think that's fair. Next time, we're coming back actually with the X series, as I mentioned, the week of with a Halloween special, and then the Friday after Halloween as well. And now the schedule, we were working on a show about Khashoggi and all the things that are going on there, and it's an evolving situation. So I'm going to do that show between now and the next X series show. And thanks so much for being out there. Cliff High, fantastic to have you. Thank you, Richard Dolan, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Joseph Farrell. I can't wait to hear all the new things that you're working on. And of course, the music. And I see we have some great people out there. I wanted to do a shout out. Lee Veltman, a cult fan, David Termina. It's just fantastic to have everyone here. And thank you for showing your courage and your strength in the face of really, I'll tell you the thing about these people that I've learned when looking at their stuff is if they think they can get away with it, they'll do it. If they don't think they can get away with it, they won't do it. So I'm telling them, you're not going to get away with it. And so we have, as I said, great people coming up on this. So we're keeping a very close, hot eye on this. And Miss Olivia, thank you. Fantastic. The only question left for the night is what's for dinner?
Oh, I don't care about dinner. I just need a drink. Stiff drink.
I'll have a straight lemonade. All right, Walter, it's great to see you. Anything, the new book that you're working on, when is that coming out?
Secret Missions 4.
Yes.
I will reveal the full title later when it's ready to release. It's looking like late November because I came across some additional source material that's very important, and I really want to do it right. So yeah, right now, tentatively late November. I do intend to get it out before the end of this calendar year, but
nice.
Look for it late November, around Thanksgiving, maybe. Sounds
fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on.
Big time. We're going to have you back on for November too. And everyone, thank you for being here. Remember, go to the Dark Journalist website, sign up for the newsletter. That's the way that we stay in touch with each other. Support the work. It's more important now than ever. And thank you, Gigi Young, for all your incredible work on the X series and all the things that you do. It's great to see you out there. We will be back with you next week. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. And, thanks for kind of going through this very interesting winding road. I think, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I look forward to more. So thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
You did a great job as usual. And, I will say this, that this was a fast moving chat. So bravo. What? Yeah. Yes.
I want my chicken.
Oh, no. We will. We'll talk about the chicken later. I promise. Walter, thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.